Chapter 885. Jing Yunzhao had also been paying attention to the movements outside in the space. The man who had attacked before had returned and immediately surrounded them with a group of people. "How are you?" As soon as the police arrived, they immediately checked the scene and found that one of the girls had died on the spot. They became more serious and quickly asked. Just now, someone nearby had called the police and said that they had smelled a stench near the unfinished building and suspected that there was a dead body. They immediately rushed over and searched, but found that the source of the stench was some stray dogs and cats. Just as they were about to evacuate with the police, another man ran down in panic and said that someone had died. Tao Gu woke up dizzily and was stunned when she saw the scene. She remembered that Zhou Meijun had found her and said that she knew a big secret of Jing Yunzhao and wanted to go with her to have a look. Originally, she didn't agree. After all, she had been penalized for participating in the forum comments before. If something happened this time, she was very likely to be fired. However, at that time, Zhou Meijun had mocked and ridiculed her, which made her very angry. Later, she even said that if she dared to go with her, she would give her 100,000 yuan. Therefore, after thinking about it, she still went with her. After all, she didn't think that it would be very serious. But as soon as she got in the car, she was knocked out by something that Zhou Meijun had sprayed on her. When she woke up, she was in this state. About 3 meters in front of her, Zhou Meijun was lying on the ground, surrounded by blood. Her eyes were wide open, as if she had died with grievances. There were forensic doctors around to check the situation. "Classmate, do you still remember what happened?" A policeman asked her again. I don't know." She was confused. At the same time, the man was frantically explaining to the police, "I'm Mei Jun's boyfriend, our relationship isn't bad." Mei Jun was originally a student at a university, but she was expelled because of a female student called Jing Yunzhao. She wasn't too happy about it, so she and this classmate called Tao Gu wanted to find Jing Yunzhao to have a chat. I was the one who acted as the driver to send them over, but since the three of them are still young girls, it wouldn't be good for a man like me to be there, so I just waited over there. The man pointed in a direction, and after the policeman recorded it, he continued, they chatted for about 10 minutes, then they started arguing over something. I listened carefully, and it seemed that Jing Yunzhao had taken a bad photo of Mei Jun. The more they argued, the worse it got. I thought about it, and when I was about to take Mei Jun away, I saw Jing Yunzhao holding a knife to Mei Jun's neck. Mei Jun collapsed on the spot, and the woman named Tao Gu also fainted. When I saw it, I was shocked and didn't know what to do. I subconsciously ran away from here. Then, I heard police sirens nearby and found you. The man's lies were very smooth. After Jing Yunzhao heard it in the space, he sneered. When Tao Gu heard it, she was also shocked. She only felt cold all over, especially when she saw Zhou Meijun's eyes. She trembled because the truth was not like that. She had fainted from the beginning. She didn't quarrel with Jing Yunzhao at all. She didn't even see Jing Yunzhao. She didn't know anything. "Classmate, is what he said true? What did you talk about?" The policeman asked again. Tao Gu panicked. In front of her was Zhou Meijun's body. She was the closest. If she said that she didn't see Jing Yunzhao, what would happen? She suddenly met the man's gaze and suddenly shivered. She nodded subconsciously. Yes, yes. Chapter 886. The policeman glanced at Tao Gu and comforted her. He felt some sympathy for her. After all, a young girl like her would definitely be traumatized after witnessing such a scene. We didn't find anyone suspicious nearby. The murder weapon wasn't found either. After a while, the results of the search were reported. When the man heard this, he frowned. That shouldn't be the case. She must be hiding somewhere nearby. When I ran away, she was standing there. She couldn't have gone far in such a short time. The man muttered in his heart. Unless Jing Yunzhao grew wings, he would definitely leave traces behind when he ran away. He might even run into the police and be caught on the spot. Now that the most important murder weapon had been taken away, it would be a troublesome matter. He didn't know if he would be able to get the full amount. We've searched the area and asked around. No one saw a beautiful girl coming in or out. After the policeman said this, he ordered, "Leave 2 people to continue the search. The rest of you will follow me back to the team." "Oh right, you guys should follow me to the police station." It was a pity that a young girl in her prime was killed. At this moment, Jing Yunzhao was looking at the scene in the space with an expressionless face. This man knew some martial arts and his movements were fast. He also attacked from behind and wore gloves on his hands, so there wasn't a single drop of blood on his clothes. A pair of gloves was very easy to deal with. Moreover, there weren't many traces on the gloves. In fact, she could have saved Zhou Meijun from his hands at that time. She could have even avoided this series of troubles. But there was no need to. She could guarantee that she wouldn't be implicated. As for Zhou Meijun, she said that it was karma for her to harm others and herself. No matter what the reason was, she deserved to end up like this. Tao Gu actually admitted to the man's words. She was really stupid. Zhou Meijun's body was quickly taken away by the police. The scene was much quieter. The police officers who stayed behind didn't find anything and quickly left. When the sky turned dark, Jing Yunzhao came out of the space and immediately received a call. "Jing Air, what's wrong with you? The police just came to our school to look for you. They said that someone saw you kill someone." Hua Tianxian was very anxious. "Really?" Jing Yunzhao's voice was calm as he said, "You don't have to worry. I'm fine and I'll be fine. It's just that I won't be able to visit Haiqing tomorrow. Let's go next time." "You're not coming back tonight?" Hua Tianxian asked in surprise. She felt that Jing Yunzhao seemed to have been prepared for this, because when a normal person heard the news of a murder, if the person was really innocent, most of them would ask about the situation in a hurry. "Well, I'll go back tomorrow morning." "You don't have to worry about the police," Jing Yunzhao said. After saying that, he gave a few more instructions and left in the dark to go to the old man's place. Witnesses were useless to her. The most important weapon had been thrown into her space. How could they accuse her of murder? If she could find an excuse for Shinchi in the past and say that everything was a coincidence, then from this moment on, she could be 100% sure that Shinchi didn't have good intentions towards her. She had to get to the bottom of this. She was looking forward to their meeting more than a month later. Jing Yunzhao stayed at the old man's place that night. When she returned to school the next morning, the police immediately came to her door. "Jing Yunzhao, where did you go after 4 in the afternoon yesterday?" the police asked directly. "Yesterday? I was taking a taxi to go to an elder's place. On the way, I met Zhou Meijun and the others. She insisted on seeing me. After I got in the taxi, I realized that they wanted to take me to a more remote place. I felt that they were up to no good, so I got off first. After that, I stayed at the elder's place. At that time, there were surveillance cameras on the road, so Jing Yunzhao could only tell the truth. However, the later part of the road was more remote, so she could say that she got off at any time. Chapter 887. When Jing Yunzhao said this, the police looked a little suspicious, so they simply took her to the police station to continue the interrogation. Jing Yunzhao's expression was calm, without a trace of guilt. When the policeman saw her, he couldn't help but believe her a little. After all, this matter involved a human life. If she could still be so righteous after killing someone, then this person was really too scary. How could an 18-year-old girl have such a perverted temperament? Yesterday, someone saw you kill Zhou Meijun with their own eyes. I have a personal grudge with the deceased and another classmate, and the other witness is Zhou Meijun's boyfriend. They have a reason to wrongly accuse me. Also, you said that the murder weapon was a knife. Where is the knife? Could it be that I can teleport and disappear from the scene of the murder to somewhere else? After Jing Yunzhao finished speaking, she said, "My family's elders will be here soon. They can also prove that I was at home when the case happened." Grandpa Shen and Su Xingyuan did not know that this matter was related to Xinxi, but they knew that she was wrongly accused of murder. The police were confused and only felt that this case was really worrying. "By the way, I suggest that you bring Tao Gu here to confront me. Some truths will naturally become clear." Jing Yunzhao smiled and looked up. When she said this, the police also agreed. After a while, Grandpa Shen and Su Xingyuan also came to clear her name. Jing Yunzhao and Tao Gu were in a room, facing each other. The camera in the room flashed red, and the room was extremely quiet. "Tao Gu, I heard that you admitted to the police that I killed someone. Did you see it?" Jing Yunzhao asked with a bit of ridicule. Tao Gu was nervous and clenched her fists. I did see it. When she admitted it yesterday, she was too nervous, and that man was really scary. Also, she was one of the people present. What if she was implicated? Moreover, she did not know what happened when she was in a coma. Since the man said that Jing Yunzhao did it, maybe it was. Jing Yunzhao had a violent personality. She had beaten someone during military training. Zhou Meijun hated her so much. It was reasonable for an accident to happen when the two of them had a conflict. Oh. Jing Yunzhao laughed instead of getting angry. Then how do you think I did it? Did Zhou Meijun struggle? You just slit her neck. Of course she resisted, but you know martial arts, so... Tao Gu was a little nervous. Jing Yunzhao nodded. Tao Gu, why are you so nervous? You're sweating. Let's just treat it as a small talk. Think about it carefully. We're both from Huaning County, but we've always been at loggerheads ever since we met. Don't you think it's a pity? Jing Yunzhao knocked on the table and continued, "Back then, you hated me because I was better than you in everything, right? For example, these clothes. With my background, I shouldn't have been able to afford them. Speaking of clothes, Tao Gu, do I look better yesterday or today?" Jing Yunzhao changed the topic and asked. Tao Ji's entire body shook, and she immediately became anxious. How would she know? She didn't even see her yesterday. "I don't want to answer such a boring question," she immediately said. Boring? If it's boring, why are you so scared? Could it be that you don't even know what I was wearing yesterday? So you were lying from the beginning to the end? Jing Yunzhao said with a smile. For some reason, Tao Gu felt that this smile was very cold, so cold that it penetrated her bones. She regretted it. She should not have agreed to follow Jing Yunzhao with Zhou Meijun. Chapter 888. Unfortunately, there was only one choice. There was no possibility of going back and starting over. Tao Gu was sitting opposite Jing Yunzhao. Her heart was about to jump out of her chest. Tao Gu, I didn't expect you to be such a vicious person. You were sleeping when I got into the car, but you insisted that you saw me. If I didn't leave the scene, how could you not know what I was wearing? But why did you lie? Could it be that you were the one who killed Zhou Meijun? Jing Yunzhao purposely asked. Tao Gu stood up immediately. I didn't kill her. It's true that Zhou Meijun and I have misunderstandings. The two of you are about the same. If Zhou Meijun didn't frame me, you wouldn't have been punished. You couldn't defend me, so you quarreled with Zhou Meijun and accidentally killed her with that man. In the end, you worked together to push the blame to me, but you have to know that everything in this world requires evidence. I got into the car suddenly. How could I have a knife? You, on the other hand, went out together to meet up. It's normal for you to have a knife in advance. Jing Yunzhao enunciated each and every word slowly and methodically. But when Tao Gu heard this, she only felt that she was going to faint. You're lying. I didn't kill anyone. I don't even know that man. If you think I'm lying, then tell me what I was wearing yesterday and what kind of bag I was carrying. Also, we should have talked, right? What did we say? That man was in the car too. Write it down across the room. If the answers are the same, I'll believe you. Tao Gu, don't try to do this kind of thing if you don't have the intelligence. You'll know that you're lying if you say I killed someone, right? The more you push the blame to me, the more it proves that you're guilty. Jing Yunzhao was still not anxious. Tao Ji's heart was already on the verge of breaking down. A normal person opening their eyes to see blood was enough to scare her for a long time. Now that Jing Yunzhao said this, she was completely exposed. I don't know. I don't know anything. Jing Yunzhao, I don't know if you killed her, but I'm innocent. I just got into the car and promised her to follow you. But as soon as I got into the car, I fell asleep. When I woke up, she was already dead. Tao Gu finally spoke. Jing Yunzhao let out a laugh. You could have just told me the truth, but you didn't yesterday. Jing Yunzhao's voice was light and cold. Jing Yunzhao stood up and walked out of the house. He looked at the astonished policeman and smiled. Now you should be able to prove my innocence, right? Tao Gu admitted that she hadn't seen me, which proves that I wasn't lying. But that man kept saying that the three of us were quarreling, and it was obvious who was right and who was wrong. But since it has nothing to do with me, can I leave now? The other party nodded. Yes, but we need to go through some procedures first. Jing Yunzhao responded and left. The contact between the man and Tao Gu and Zhou Meijun was similar. Without the murder knife and fingerprints, it was difficult to determine whether Tao Gu or the man killed the person. Originally, if Tao Gu had told the truth from the beginning, she would have found a way to change her words and prove her innocence. After all, even if the crime was not confirmed, the rumors of murder could definitely destroy a person. But Tao Gu had lied and pushed the blame to her in order to get rid of suspicion. So, she couldn't blame her for being merciless. Jing Yunzhao supported the old man as they left together. Her gaze was cold. She could predict that Tao Gu wouldn't be caught, but she wouldn't have a good time being entangled with an unclear murder suspect. However, people always have to pay the price for their own choices. Chapter 889. After Jing Yunzhao left, Tao Gu was left alone in the interrogation room. Facing the police's interrogation, she couldn't defend herself. Other than insisting that she didn't kill anyone, there was nothing else she could do. What kind of grudge do the other two have with you? How dare they accuse you of murder? Outside the police station, Elder Su asked. He naturally believed that the brat didn't kill anyone. It wasn't because she was a kind person, but because if she really killed someone, she wouldn't have done it so obviously. Who knows? Maybe they think I'm easy to bully. Jing Yunzhao smiled and didn't take it to heart. Elder Su pursed his lips. Easy to bully. If it was someone else, he would believe it, but Jing Yunzhao, this brat was taught by him. 2 or 3 years ago, it might have been easier to control her, but now, with the growth of age, knowledge, and experience, her temperament was no longer the same as before. It was difficult for ordinary people to plot against her. "Brat, did you offend someone? Don't think I'm a fool. No matter who the murderer is, there must be someone behind him. After all, killing is such a big thing. If there isn't a huge benefit, those two definitely wouldn't do it." Elder Sue snorted and turned to look at the scenery outside the car window. "Elder, you're so smart, but you make me seem a little stupid." Jing Yunzhao didn't tell the truth. Instead, he said, "Don't worry, I definitely have the ability to protect myself. It's difficult for others to hurt me." Jing Yunzhao didn't say it directly, but Elder Sue understood and didn't ask. The capital is a place with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Your martial arts are a little high, but you still have to be careful. Later, tell the Li family's boy and ask him to get you a good gun to play with, Elder Sue said. "Okay, but Elder Sue, I have something to report to you." Jing Yunzhao moved his body and said hesitantly. "Go ahead. I've founded a pharmaceutical company, and the scale of it isn't small. There'll be a business gala in a month's time, and I should be attending it. Uncle Sue will definitely be there, so he should be able to see me then," Jing Yunzhao said. She didn't want to go past the old man to see Su Yuantek. She didn't want to anger the old man. There were too many mysteries about Shinchi's affairs. She still didn't know why Shinchi was against her. She felt that it was better to keep it a secret from Grandpa for the time being. He was old, and the less he cared about these troublesome things, the better. Moreover, the reason why Shinchi was against her had a lot to do with Su Xianlan. If she told Grandpa, Grandpa would definitely be unable to eat or sleep. After all, Su Xianlan was Grandpa's lifeline. "Brat, if you want to know Yuanza, just say it. It's not your first day running a company, and you've been a hands-off boss for the past 2 years. Now you suddenly want to take responsibility. Who are you trying to fool?" Grandpa Su directly pointed out Jing Yunzhao's thoughts with one sentence. Jing Yunzhao's face turned red, which was rare. She didn't know if it was because this old man was the same kind of person as her, so she couldn't hide in front of him. "Yes, I want to meet Uncle Su." Jing Yunzhao nodded and admitted. "Why?" Grandpa Su snorted, looking a little arrogant, especially when he glanced at Jing Yunzhao, as if to say, "You can't escape from my eyes." Chapter 890. Su Xingyuan drove the car and saw that Jing Yunzhao was completely guessed by the old man. A smile appeared on his serious face. After thinking for a while, Jing Yunzhao said seriously, "Elder Su, I also see you as my grandfather or even my master. Uncle Su is your eldest son, so it's normal for me to want to meet him. Moreover, Uncle Su is the leader of the capital city. It's good for the company to have a good relationship with him." The old man glanced at her. He sighed. "You have more and more secrets." Jing Yunzhao was not someone who liked to rely on connections. Otherwise, she would have already spread the news that she was the boss of Yuling Wine. She saw a lot of external fame and fortune very clearly. Once fame and fortune were obtained, many other things would be sacrificed, including freedom. Therefore, she had been careful to live like an ordinary person for the past 2 years. "Forget it. You can go if you want. But Brat, Yuanza is my son. I know what kind of person he is. Your face will bring you benefits. But if it's him, I'm afraid." The old man paused. His son was very suspicious. After seeing Jing Yunzhao, he would definitely suspect her relationship with Qianlan. At that time, he would definitely compare her DNA with Qianlan's DNA file. He had always wanted to confirm Jing Yunzhao's identity but did not dare to. If Jing Yunzhao was his maternal granddaughter, then he was afraid that his daughter was indeed gone. He would rather believe that his daughter was living a happy life somewhere because of some unforeseen event than believe that she had left this world. And if she wasn't his maternal granddaughter, he would be disappointed. It was not for nothing that he had been so good to her for so many years. His heart was as clear as a mirror, and he knew everything. However, he didn't want to expose that layer of window paper. After all, he was old, and he wanted to live a peaceful life. Those stimuli were too cruel for him, but now... The old man's face became serious. He had been numb to himself for 2 or 3 years, but he could not continue like this. After all, this girl was still very young. Forget it, let nature take its course. Afraid of what? At this time, Jing Yunzhao was slightly stunned and asked again, but the old man had already closed his eyes to rest, pretending not to hear. Jing Yunzhao thought about it and roughly guessed what the old man meant. The old man was probably worried that Su Yuantek would misunderstand. But now the identity problem was easy to identify. Although Su Xianlan was not there were traces of her in the Su family. When the time came, they would know. After sending the old man home, Jing Yunzhao went back to school. Seeing that she was not detained by the police, Hua Tianxian and the others breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was a Saturday, and many students were not around. When the police came, they did not cause much of a commotion. They only said that they wanted to inquire about Jing Yunzhao's situation, so there were no negative rumors about her. She was fine, but Tao Gu was different. Ever since Tao Gu was taken away by the police, she had never returned. Even a fake story could become the truth. Have you explained it to the police? What's going on? Tao Gu doesn't seem to be back yet. Could it really be? Hua Tianxian frowned. She was very shocked. Tao Gu killed her. But that Tao Gu was obviously a girl with vanity. She should not be able to do such a gory thing. After all, it was cutting the throat. How could someone without a certain level of psychological preparation do such a thing? Compared to Tao Gu, she even felt that Jing Yunzhao had the courage to do so. Don't think too much. Whether it was her or not has nothing to do with us, Jing Yunzhao said softly. Chapter 891. Jing Yunzhao was not stupid enough to admit that Huiyao had killed Huiyao. If she did, she would lose all evidence of her alibi. Moreover, she had her retribution. Since Tao Gu had accused her of killing Huiyao, she deserved a taste of her own medicine. Hua Tianxian glanced at Huiyao suspiciously. She pondered for a moment and guessed what was going on. It was just that she had lived in a place like the Hua family since she was young, so she was very clear on what she should say and what she shouldn't. Jing Yunzhao's attitude was already so obvious, so she naturally wouldn't foolishly go up and ask more questions. Yao Baobao was curious, but Ren Xingyue and Hua Tianxian stopped her. Jing Er, we agreed to visit her on set today. Hua Tianxian raised her head and winked at Huiyao. But the time now. I just asked someone to help me ask around. Originally, she was going to shoot the daytime scene today, but she changed it at the last minute to shoot the night scene. If we go now, she'll probably have to wait at the set for the whole day. Let's go now to accompany her, what do you think? Hua Tianxian said with a smirk. Jing Yunzhao frowned. Why did they change the night scene all of a sudden? If she has to film during the day tomorrow, she won't be able to rest for a day and a half. I'm not sure. Why don't you go over and take a look? I have already prepared a gift for you. Hua Tianxian pointed at the pile of gifts on the floor. Jing Yunzhao contemplated before she nodded. However, she turned her head and stared at Huiyao. Xian Er. Hua Tianxian immediately shuddered. What the hell? Why are you suddenly calling me something so mushy? Hua Tianqian's face stiffened. Fine. What do you want me to do? The Hua family must have a lot of houses, right? Do you have any that are close to the set? I want to buy some things on the way and make some porridge and side dishes to bring over. Jing Yunzhao still had that serious look on her face. She knew Xiao Haiqing too well. That woman was usually very carefree and straightforward, but once she set her mind on something, she would definitely do it without any regard for her life. Back then, in order to bring down James, he did not even tell her that he had been photographed. His heart was filled with the idea of perishing together. People with this kind of temper did not care about their own bodies at all. Recently, filming must have been very tough. Xan Han was a very unlucky character. Once Xiao Haiqing was put into the role, there was a high chance that her body would be ruined. Hua Tianxian breathed a sigh of relief. She thought it was something big, but it turned out that it was just borrowing the kitchen. No problem, but are you good at cooking? I haven't had lunch yet either. Do you want to make some more for me to try? Hua Tianxian asked curiously. Sure. Jing Yunzhao nodded. Yao Baobao was even more hungry when she heard this. Fortunately, she had agreed to go next time, so she did not follow. The Hua family was in the jewelry business. There were thousands of stores all over the country. The Hua Corporation was very famous. According to Hua Tianxian herself, Hua Jewelry's annual turnover was in the tens of billions. Even the net profit was close to 10 billion. As the daughter of the Hua Corporation, her net worth was not low. However, Jing Yunzhao was not bad either. Although Yuling Wine's current turnover was not as high as the Hua Corporation's, the net profit was similar. Moreover, the Hua Corporation had been a stable company for many years. Yuling Wine had only been established recently. There was a lot of room for growth in the next 2 years. It might even surpass the Hua Corporation soon. Of course, they were not in the same industry, so there was not much to compare. Chapter 892. The house that Hua Tianxian brought Jing Yunzhao to wasn't very big. It was a garden bungalow with beautiful scenery. My dad gave this to me as a coming-of-age gift. I just accepted it. Isn't it great? Hua Tianxian's eyes sparkled. It's pretty good, Jing Yunzhao said sincerely. Hua Tianxian raised her eyebrows and smiled brightly. Then, she hurriedly helped Jing Yunzhao carry the things into the kitchen. The kitchen was very big and had everything. However, because no one had lived in the house before, it seemed a little cold and cheerless. There was also the smell of dust in the air. Let me say this first. I don't know how to cook, so I can only watch you cook. Hua Tianxian shrugged. Jing Yunzhao nodded and didn't say anything else. Although these things were bought, Jing Yunzhao secretly swapped them with the supplies in the space. Now, after a simple cleaning, he started cooking. Hua Tianxian watched from the side and was so surprised that she couldn't close her mouth. Jing Yunzhao's knife skills were simply perfect. Pang, pang, pang. The sound of chopping could be heard continuously. The vegetables on the table were cut to almost the same thickness. It looked as if they were cut by a machine. Not only that, but his culinary skills were even better. Hua Tianxian watched in confusion, but she could already smell the rich aroma. She was dumbfounded as she watched the consecutive dishes being served in an orderly manner. Did you specially learn how to cook? His culinary skills are even better than the high-end chef we hired. Hua Tianxian subconsciously said. I just cooked too much, Jing Yunzhao said softly. Before she learned how to read, she had already learned how to cook. However, it was just some home-cooked dishes. Her cooking skills weren't that good. However, after learning martial arts in this life, her knife skills became better and better. Also, her sense of smell and taste were better than ordinary people's. Moreover, the spirit jade from the ancestor contained many things. Medicinal cuisine was one of them. After integrating it, her culinary skills also improved. Jing Yunzhao's understatement made Hua Tianxian feel uncomfortable. She seemed to understand why Jing Yunzhao's personality was so indifferent. For girls of the same age as her, even if they knew how to cook, it would only be average. At most, their food would be delicious, but Jing Yunzhao knew everything and was better than others. That was abnormal, because this kind of ability could not be innate. Presumably, Jing Yunzhao had lived for 18 years, and every day was filled with work and learning. Although she wasn't a young lady from a rich family, she felt that her life was more tiring. At the very least, she had everything she needed. Although she lacked the love of her parents, she had a lot of other things. Jing Yunzhao's cooking speed was very fast. She basically made everything according to Xiao Haiqing's taste. Even after everything was packed up, the aroma was still lingering in the air. After everything was ready, they set off. This time, Hua Tianxian didn't show off. She didn't sit in a red sports car like she did when she met Qi Zhong. Instead, she drove a very simple caravan. It was mainly to make it convenient for Xiao Haiqing to rest. Not long after, they arrived at the filming location. Jing Yunzhao first made a call, but no one picked up. After thinking about it, he got out of the car with Hua Tianxian to look for the filming location. The scenery here was excellent. There were ancient buildings next to it. Everywhere was filled with a simple atmosphere. The exact location of the filming location was easy to find. The two of them quickly went over. There were many busy men and women in front of them. Some were sitting and waiting, while others were carefully watching the actors and actresses who were in the middle of filming. Jing Yunzhao glanced around and finally saw Xiao Haiqing. Chapter 893. The two of them lifted their feet and walked over. As they approached, Jing Yunzhao's face darkened. "Little Xiao, didn't you add sugar to this coffee? Why does it taste so bad?" After saying that, she directly threw it to the side and spilled it all over the floor. "I'll give you the money. Buy me another cup. Remember to add more sugar. I hate bitter things." "Xiao Ru, I'm sorry. Our family's little Xiao still needs to read the script. How about this, I'll help you buy it." The agent, Ling Lin, immediately smiled and said, "Sister Lin, you haven't brought anyone with you for many years, right? I was quite surprised that you suddenly brought little Xiao along. But when I saw little Xiao, I knew. Fortunately, I changed her in time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to make a name for myself until now." The woman sat and acted like a young mistress. "Little Xiao, help me buy it. It's not like I don't want to pay. Sister Lin, you have experience. Help me see how it's done." After saying that, Xiao Haiqing and Ling Lin didn't move. Jing Yunzhao could feel her tense body from a few meters away. "Little sister little Xiao, here's the money. Go quickly. Remember not to suffer." After the woman finished speaking, she put a red bill on the table in front of her and closed her eyes to rest. Jing Yunzhao took a deep breath and walked over. "If you can't bear the hardship, why drink coffee?" Jing Yunzhao coldly snorted and asked Xiao Haiqing, "Did she pay for that cup of coffee just now?" Xiao Haiqing saw Jing Yunzhao's brows loosen and she shook her head. Jing Yunzhao directly took the money on the table and stuffed it into Xiao Haiqing's pocket. "Since that's the case, you can keep this money. Including the travel expenses, even though it's a bit too little, there's nothing you can do when you meet someone like this." "Okay. But didn't you call yesterday and say that you can't come today? Xiao Haiqing asked. I've settled the matter. I know that you're filming tonight, so I came over to take a look. Jing Yunzhao glanced at Ling Lin. Sister Lin, I asked you to follow Haiqing not only to pave the way for her, but also to prevent her from being bullied. You're an experienced manager, so you should be able to do that, right? Back then, she was the one who thought of Ling Lin, but at that time, Ling Lin hadn't had a job or income for a long time. Jing Yunzhao decided to follow Shintong's path and signed a contract with her. Ling Lin's salary would be paid by Jing Yunzhao, while Ling Jia would be in charge of handling Haiqing's daily affairs. You are, Big Sister Lin, this is Yunzhao. She was the one who introduced you, Xiao Haiqing explained. Then, she turned to Jing Yunzhao and said, Don't be angry. That's how this circle is. Miss Jing. Sister Lin knew who it was and immediately greeted her. Ling Lin was in her 30s. She did not look very pretty, but it was obvious that she was a straightforward person. Jing Yunzhao was just reminding her. There were some things that she understood in her heart, so she only nodded and didn't say anything else. However, the woman beside her stood up. Who are you? Jing Yunzhao furrowed her brows. The woman in front of her was about 23 or 24 years old. She was very beautiful, but the makeup made the ends of her eyes slender. She gave off an enchanting and bewitching feeling. No matter how she looked at it, she looked like a bad woman. Yunzhao, this is Miss Mu Ru. She's the second female lead in this drama. I've been acting with her a lot, Xiao Haiqing explained. A flash of understanding crossed Jing Yunzhao's mind. Then it's no wonder. She was not a good person, both in and out of the drama. She had read the script of this drama. The second female lead was extremely evil. You don't have any scenes to film during the day, right? I've made some food. Come back to the car with me to rest. Jing Yunzhao's attitude was firm. She pulled Ling Lin away. Chapter 894. Jing Yunzhao's appearance was outstanding. The moment she appeared, she attracted a lot of attention. When Xiao Haiqing heard that there was food to eat, she didn't want to bother with Mu Ru anymore and immediately followed after Jing Yunzhao. Yunzhao, you treat me the best. You came all the way here to give me food. Oh yes, this is. She pointed at Hua Tianxian. Celestial Immortal Hua rolled her eyes, but she finally saw her. It was the first time that the daughter of the Hua family had been ignored to this extent. This is my roommate. Her name is Hua Tianxian. Jing Yunzhao introduced her. Hua Tianxian lifted her chin and smiled. Xiao Haiqing. I know you. Jing often mentions you. When she was in a good mood, she would address her differently. Is that so? Xiao Haiqing was stunned for a moment, but she quickly said, Thank you for taking care of Yunzhao. If there's a chance in the future, let's drink and chat more. Okay. Hua Tianxian was still in high spirits. This Xiao Haiqing did look a little likable. She was good-looking, her voice was pleasant, but not pretentious. Her every move had a sense of elegance, and she looked very refreshing. What's up with Mu Ru? Is it because of her that you have to wait here for the night scene? Jing Yunzhao asked as he took out the food in the car. Her. Actually, there's nothing to be angry about. Mu Ru's personality is like this. She looks bad and doesn't have a good attitude, but it's all on the surface. I have a lot of scenes with her. If we interact more, the filming will go more smoothly, Xiao Haiqing said cheerfully. I've heard of Mu Ru. It wasn't easy for her to make it to the B-list. She looks more feminine, so most of her fans are otakus, Hua Tianxian added. Then what's with your night scene? Jing Yunzhao frowned. He hadn't forgotten. Indeed, it's not Muru's fault. Besides, she has to wait just like me. Xiao Haiqing smelled the aroma of the dishes and continued, the female lead of this drama is quite popular. Her schedule has been packed recently. She said that she has to attend a variety show tonight, so she had to film her scenes in advance. Only then did Jing Yunzhao's expression soften a little. Ling Lin was drenched in cold sweat in the car. She was afraid that Jing Yunzhao would think that she was abusing Xiao Haiqing. By the way, I can cook a lot of dishes. Do you want to invite some of your close friends to try some? Additionally, a heavenly immortal also brought gifts over, Jing Yunzhao said. Xiao Haiqing did not refuse. She knew that Jing Yunzhao was doing this for her own good. Besides, many people had seen them when they arrived. They would ask about it later. Immediately, the three of them carried the gifts out of the car. Xiao Haiqing exchanged a few pleasantries with many people and sent the gifts out. She also called out to them, indicating that if anyone was hungry, they could eat together. However, most of them were discerning and did not join in the fun. Hua Tianxian had bought enough gifts for everyone. The gift was a crystal bracelet that was beautifully packaged. Regardless of the price, it was still a good shop front. What's that smell? When the three of them sent the gifts back to eat, a sound came from the car door. Director. Xiao Haiqing was shocked. You want to eat together? The director was in his 40s or 50s. He was very capable. All the dramas he had filmed had good results and a good reputation. However, he was also famous for his eccentric temper. Because of Shintong, the director treated her well, but he was not exactly pleasant. Hence, Xiao Haiqing was just being polite. However, in the next second, the director said, since we're stopping work, I'll try it too. Chapter 895. Xiao Haiqing couldn't help but be surprised. She stared at the director in astonishment. The director acted as if he didn't see her and called two more people into the car. He didn't treat her as an outsider at all. Which restaurant did you buy these dishes from? Do they serve box lunches? The director picked up a few pieces of good food and piled them into a small mountain before asking. Jing Yunzhao blushed with shame. The director was too impolite. My friend made these himself. Xiao Haiqing was also speechless. She was afraid that she would eat all the dishes for the director award, so she immediately picked up a lot of food for Jing Yunzhao and herself. The male and female assistants who were called over by the director were also a little upset. They didn't dare to eat more of such good food. They felt so wronged. After all, this was a private car for these girls. If the director came alone and someone took photos, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. Otherwise, he wouldn't have called them over. When the director heard this, he raised his head and looked at Jing Yunzhao and Hua Tianxian in surprise. Before this, he had only smelled the food and hadn't seen them. But when he looked, his eyes lit up. You are also from the Film and Television Academy. Do you have any previous works? What roles have you acted in? The director asked immediately, not hiding his surprise. Director, these two friends of mine are university students from a university. They have never acted before. Xiao Haiqing was speechless. The filming of this drama hadn't been going on for long. She hadn't spoken much with the director in private. At most, the director would sometimes give her a few pointers, telling her what was wrong and what emotions needed to be stirred up. Thus, they weren't familiar with each other at all. But now that she saw the way the director fought over the dishes, she didn't feel that scary anymore. Never acted before. The director was stunned for a moment. He had seen actors of Xiao Haiqing's age before. When their friends came to visit, they mostly had some ulterior motives. Most of them wanted to use their connections to get a few cameo roles. Very few of them had such pure motives. The two girls were good-looking. In his eyes, they were considered top-notch, especially the one sitting next to Xiao Haiqing. Her eyes were cold, and her eyes were as dark as ink. They looked bottomless. With such looks and temperament, it was easy to create some classic characters. Just like how he had taken a liking to Xiao Haiqing, it wasn't just because of Shintong. The most important thing was that this girl only needed to settle down for a period of time, and her future was limitless. Do the two of you have any thoughts on acting? If I'm not mistaken, my next drama will also be a period drama, and there will be roles suitable for the three of you, the director said. Xiao Haiqing was shocked and glanced at Jing Yunzhao. Sorry, I'm not interested in acting, Jing Yunzhao replied first. Me too. Hua Tianxian raised her eyebrows and smiled arrogantly. If her parents knew that she was acting, they would definitely beat her to death because they were now looking forward to her learning so that she could inherit the company in the future. The director was also a person with good taste. When he heard the tone, he knew that the other party didn't intend to play hard to get. He sighed in his heart. But on second thought, the entertainment industry was very deep. The two little girls seemed to have good characters. It would be a pity if they were tainted. Now that the director wasn't here, the scene outside naturally couldn't be filmed. Everyone was a little curious, and many people gathered not far from the RV to watch. They only felt that the fragrance was overflowing, and it made people salivate. Those who had been invited by Xiao Haiqing before couldn't help but regret. If they had known that the smell was so good, they would have eaten together. But it was a little late now. Director. So you're eating delicious food here. Can we join in the fun? Chapter 896. Two women came over from outside the car and said something. Without waiting for the director to speak, they had already brought the crew's lunch box forward. However, Jing Yunzhao clearly felt that the director's face had become serious. She immediately picked up a lot of food and put it in the bowl. The corner of her mouth couldn't help but twitch. If she felt it right, the director should be protecting the food. It was a pity that the two women outside the door wanted to get close to the director. When the two women came forward, they felt that the director didn't seem very happy. However, they didn't know why. One of them smiled and said, "Little Xiao, the food tastes so good. It seems that the crew's food will be handed over to you." The woman who spoke was Mu Ru. The other person next to her was the female lead of this drama. She looked familiar and should be a popular star. This food was cooked by my friend. Usually, others can't eat it. Xiao Haiqing was still polite. She also felt a little sorry for Jing Yunzhao. The food she cooked tasted good, but now it was going to be wasted. Mu Ru and Yi Wan's relationship with her was average. It could even be said that it wasn't good. She was just a newcomer in the entertainment industry. Although she had a good relationship with the crew, these two women were the exception. Mu Ru was a jealous person. Someone had praised her young and beautiful in front of Mu Ru, causing Mu Ru to mock her and target her from time to time. However, this woman was not scheming. Usually, those small things were harmless to her. But Yi Wan was different. Yi Wan was an A-list star who had acted in many dramas. Now was the time when she was popular. She looked gentle on the surface, but in fact, she was arrogant and cold to people other than the director. So far, except for the lines, the two hadn't spoken a word for so many days. Although Jing Yunzhao was the kind of woman who didn't like to talk to others, she was completely different from Yi Wan. Yi Wan was the kind of person who stepped on the weak, but Jing Yunzhao was the same to everyone. But after all, they were in the crew and she was a newcomer. It was better to maintain a good relationship on the surface. Director, I wasn't in a good state just now. Thank you for your hard work. Yi-won said politely. The director nodded. Take advantage of the break to adjust. Jin Yunzhao couldn't help but smile. The director probably added in his heart, you're not in a good state, but you still have the nerve to eat so happily. By the way, director, I heard that you're going to shoot a harem drama next. Yi-won asked. Most of her characters were silly and sweet, and the audience was tired of them. If she could get the role of the director's next female lead, it would be a good opportunity for her to change her style. We'll talk about it after we finish filming this drama. However, the director did not give her any face at all. He was a man of few words, but he did stuff a lot of food into his mouth. Yi-won was tactfully rejected. Her face was a little embarrassed, but she tactfully did not ask further. The amount of food Jin Yunzhao cooked wasn't small. Logically speaking, even if there were 2 more people, it would still be enough. However, she had underestimated the director's appetite. By the time he got up, the food in front of him had already been swept clean. There wasn't even any juice left. By the way, Xiao, you don't have many scenes today. Why don't you film yours first? That way, you won't have to stay up all night, the director said in front of everyone as soon as he got out of the car. Hearing this, Yi-won was stunned. Director, I still have a show to do tonight. 2 or 3 hours is enough for a show. Since you're not in a good state, I'll give you some time to get used to it. After saying this, the director said to the others, get ready to shoot the original scenes. Chapter 897. To Xiao Haiqing, this was a surprise from the heavens. Staying up late wasn't easy, let alone for a day and a half. Now, it was solved with a meal. If she had known that the director was such a glutton, she would have learned a few tricks from Yunzhao. Xiao Haiqing glanced at Yi-won and Muru. Muru was also very happy. After all, she was one of the beneficiaries. However, Yi-won's expression wasn't so good. She looked depressed. However, Xiao Haiqing wasn't someone who was afraid of getting into trouble. Yi-won was the one who snatched away the original set, so it wasn't impossible for her to get it back now. As for whether Yi-won would be angry or not, it didn't matter. The director's attitude was related to the direction of the whole crew. Moreover, Xiao Haiqing's popularity was very good. Many people were relieved for her. Jin Yunzhao finally felt that the director was more pleasing to the eye. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, the director was in high spirits and started to shoot. Xiao Haiqing was in a good mood. The shooting was very smooth. Compared to Yi-won's situation in the morning, it was a complete opposite. Not only that, almost everyone found that the director's temper seemed to be much better. After every scene, he would explain it to Xiao Haiqing very carefully. This was very rare. Director Wang was very famous. Many superstars had to be polite to him when they saw him. Most of the artists who could receive his guidance had a very bright future. Therefore, Xiao Haiqing's status in the crew instantly rose. However, Yi-won clenched her fists. After returning to her nanny van, she asked her agent to make a call. Jin Yunzhao and Hua Tianxian watched Xiao Haiqing shoot. The two of them found it very interesting. However, an hour later, a few reporters suddenly swarmed around the crew and rushed to Yi-won's nanny van. Yi-won, we just received news that you were supposed to shoot the scene, but it was snatched away by a newcomer with a backer. Is that true? It's not like that. The director always treats everyone equally. My scene was originally scheduled to be shot at night. Yi-won smiled. If that's the case, why are you in the crew now? Won't it affect you greatly if the newcomer snatches your filming time? I also heard that she snatched your part in the scene. Is that true? The reporter asked again. The drama, Palace of the Eunuch, had been very famous recently. When they first started filming, there were also reporters who came over to watch. However, the director of the production team was famous for his bad temper. There was almost no news about his production team. Now that there was a rare conflict, they naturally had to verify it. Ewan glanced at the reporter awkwardly. However, in the reporter's eyes, her gaze looked like she had been wronged. S.B. That fan also took a picture of Xiao Haiqing filming, but it was quite far away, so only a rough outline could be seen. This little bitch is obviously not a good person. She's playing a very important third female lead. I heard that she has a lot of scenes. She must have slept with the director to get more scenes. Director Wang is famous for being a fair director. Above, don't talk nonsense. Even if she didn't sleep with the director, she must have slept with someone else in the crew. This scheming bitch is Xiao Haiqing. She's an 18-year-old student. If she doesn't have a backer, I won't believe it. Suddenly, Ewan's Weibo fell. Most of the comments were insulting Xiao Haiqing and comforting words. Chapter 898. As soon as the crazy comments came out, someone immediately contacted the crew. Soon, the director found out about it. However, the number of reporters was increasing. It was a headache. Jing Yunzhao originally didn't know the situation, but once the reporters and fans came, even if she didn't want to understand, she would still know everything clearly. She immediately logged into her account to take a look. As expected, someone had already searched for her number one fan. In a short period of time, the number of comments had already reached tens of thousands, and it was still increasing at a straight line. This woman really knows how to act. Hua Tianxian rolled her eyes in Ewan's direction when she heard this. At this moment, the director was surrounded by reporters. The cameras kept snapping at Xiao Haiqing. Xiao Haiqing didn't panic. She had been filming. Although she didn't know what was going on, she knew that if she didn't perform well enough, she would become a black mark in the future. Director Wang, I heard that there were many famous actors competing for the role of Xian Han. Why did you choose Xiao Haiqing, a newcomer who couldn't be more new? The reporter asked aggressively. The director was so angry that his face turned green. It wasn't easy to make progress today, but this happened again. He was in the industry and knew the importance of the female lead. He also knew how to hype things up. Therefore, he couldn't say anything that was unfavorable to Ewan. It's all based on her ability. Xiao Xiao is an actress that I have high hopes for. She has a bright future. As for the role of Xian Han, she played it very well, the director said directly. But we heard that she didn't go through the proper channels for the audition. She was introduced by someone who has a strong image in the entertainment industry. You should know who that person is, right? The reporter asked. I only look at the actor's abilities. That's a fact that everyone knows. So you're saying that Xiao Haiqing was introduced to you by someone through the back door? The director's face turned cold. Xiao Haiqing didn't have a good time. Jing Yunzhao looked at the comments and wanted to kill someone. She had been managing this account for the past few days. It was always peaceful and harmonious. Now, it was a gathering of all kinds of vulgarities. She couldn't take it anymore. Jing Yunzhao glanced at Ewan, who was being comforted by the reporters and fans, and snorted. After thinking about it, he gave Shintong a call. Aunt Tong, I want to trouble you with something. Record a short video. Yes, the call was short, but not long after, Shintong sent the video over. After Jing Yunzhao confirmed it once, he uploaded it directly. Shintong. What does it have to do with Shintong? The reporters at the side were confused. Almost at the same time, they opened their phones and looked at Jing Yunzhao's Weibo. They were immediately dumbfounded. Just a moment ago, the owner of the account named Yun Xiao suddenly posted a video. In the video, Shintong, who had officially retired from acting for many years, spoke seriously to the camera. Regarding the comments about Xiao Haiqing that suddenly appeared on the internet, I feel very sad. Back then, when the eunuchs were casting, director Wang was very distressed because he couldn't find anyone suitable for the role of Xian Han. Coincidentally, I met Xiao Haiqing and felt that whether it was her temperament or her potential, she surprised me, so I recommended her to director Wang. The video was short, but it was very influential. Shintong had retired from acting for 20 years. She was a cinnabar mole in almost everyone's heart. The roles she played back then were very beautiful. Now that they looked at her again, they realized that her appearance hadn't changed much. She just looked more mature. Chapter 899. Shintong did not say anything superfluous in this video. She only explained the reason for Xiao Haiqing's audition and expressed that she hoped everyone would support her. But with just a few simple words, the public opinion suddenly changed. After Shintong returned to China, the media also expressed that they wanted to interview her, but she rejected all of them. She may not have power or influence, but she had an unparalleled status in the entertainment industry. So many reporters tried their best to get Shintong to appear in public, but now Xiao Haiqing could. Little Xiao, what is your relationship with Shintong? Are you relatives? Suddenly, the reporters squeezed to Xiao Haiqing's side and asked. Even the way they addressed her became intimate. Xiao Haiqing was stunned. She glanced at Jing Yunzhao's direction and saw her smile. She immediately understood. No, we met by chance once. Thank you to her for introducing me to Director Wang. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have the opportunity to audition. Xiao Haiqing told the truth. Her words were quite good, letting others know that she had only asked for the opportunity to audition and not directly asked for the role of Xian Han. Not much time had passed since the reporters targeted her, but Xiao Haiqing's attitude did not change much from beginning to end. Even when she mentioned Shintong, she was still polite and humble. Her smile was bright and beautiful, and people couldn't help but have a good impression of her. Shintong was a senior in the entertainment industry and had a good relationship with many heavenly kings and queens, as well as directors. Her first appearance was for a newcomer, so no matter what, the reporters had to give her face. Yi Wan was indeed very popular, but there were many artists like her. They rose because of a few dramas, but it wouldn't be long before they were replaced by others. They couldn't be compared with Shintong. Moreover, with Shintong's protection and high praise from Director Wang, who knew if the tides would turn in the future? Her appearance and bearing were indeed extraordinary. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before she became someone they wanted to please. At this time, even if they didn't want to maintain a good relationship with her, their words had to be a little tactful. Little Xiao, someone said that you made Yi Wan wait. What's going on? Another reporter asked. Xiao Haiqing added, it must be a misunderstanding. Today, Miss Muru and I arrived at the set after 5 o'clock. Later, because Miss Yuan had to rush for a show at night, our scenes were temporarily postponed. The reason why we changed to the original plan was that Miss Yuan's scenes were very difficult and the filming didn't go well. Jing Yunzhao pursed his lips and smiled. Xiao Haiqing was not a stupid woman with a one-track mind. The reporters came out of nowhere. It was easy to figure out who the reason was. But now that Yi Wan was famous, if she kept going against Yi Wan, she would be the one to suffer. Therefore, supporting Yi Wan now was the best choice. As for whether or not the scenes were more difficult, they would know when it was released. The audience's eyes were bright. In terms of difficulty, Xe and Han scenes were the most complicated and difficult. Is it because you don't have a good relationship with Muru and Yuan that you call them so estranged? The reporter immediately found something wrong. Xiao Haiqing smiled. That's because Yuan and Muru are playing rich young ladies in the show. This is my nickname for them. The reporter was also surprised. Everyone was smart, but it was rare to see a girl with such emotional intelligence. Then can little Xiao reveal Muru and Yuan's performance in the show? The reporter continued to dig. Performance. After all, I'm a newcomer. I can only use the word look to describe it. It can be said that it's amazing, lovely, and pitiful. But the two of them and I are rivals in the show. If I praise them too much, I'm afraid that I'll be merciful in the show and Director Wang will go berserk. So, sister reporter, please let me go. Chapter 900. After Xiao Haiqing finished speaking, everyone around her breathed a sigh of relief. Director Wang was afraid that she would impulsively say something that would harm others without benefiting herself, but now that he heard it, he felt that it was too rare. At such a young age, she was able to advance and retreat. She was simply a rare seedling. Even the manager, Ling Lin, stroked her rapidly beating heart and was completely relieved. When she first asked her to take care of Xiao Haiqing, she was a little worried. It was mainly because this girl was beautiful and had a bit of a gorgeous feeling. This kind of appearance could easily attract trouble. If she was not smart enough, this road would definitely not be easy to walk. But now, it seemed that she had thought too much. However, some people were happy while others were angry. Yuan, who was left out, had an extremely ugly expression. Xiao Haiqing's comments were overly giving the audience hope. If she didn't deserve it, she would definitely attract criticism. This show didn't lack beauties and was very competitive, but she couldn't refute. She could only be modest, but it was useless. This girl was stepping on her to climb up. However, no wonder the director was so good to her. It turned out that Shintong had introduced her. Yuan secretly gritted her teeth. She knew Shintong's influence in the entertainment industry, so she couldn't mess around. She was just the third female lead, and her young age was also a shackle. She had no chance to compete with her. Since that was the case, she didn't need to worry about such a small matter. Yuan breathed a sigh of relief and faced the reporters with a smile. She lifted her feet and walked to Xiao Haiqing's side. She looked at the crowd as if she was looking at a little sister and said, "I've made everyone worry. My relationship with Xiao Xiao is really good. She's still young, so I hope everyone can be more tolerant of her, thank you." Xiao Haiqing said sincerely. Then she said, "But after all, I did bully Miss Yuan in the show. I hope that when the show is broadcast, the P's will be merciful to me." The P's was the nickname of Yuan's fans. Jing Yunzhao looked at this scene and smiled with satisfaction. At least this Yuan had some brains. However, she was probably feeling very frustrated. She originally thought that it would be impossible for Xiao Haiqing to make a name for herself, but in the blink of an eye, she had done publicity for her. She could only grit her teeth and stuff it into her stomach. This friend of yours has a very high EQ. She's quite similar to you. Both of them are able to remain calm and collected. If it were a normal person, they would have cried out for injustice or even shed tears. Hua Tianxian sighed and gave her a thumbs up. If an artist shed tears casually, they might not be liked. Especially since she didn't have any fame, people would only say that she was trying to create hype. His current attitude was just right. He was neither servile nor overbearing, and there was nothing that would easily make people unhappy. It was simply amazing. Adapting to the environment is only natural. Jing Yunzhao looked in the direction of Xiao Haiqing and smiled gently. Xiao Haiqing wasn't such a person in the beginning. She was straightforward and a little careless. She couldn't stand being wronged or wronged. If she didn't like what she used to be, she might rush up and beat someone up. However, people grew up. If she was the same as before, her stepmother wouldn't have suffered so much. With so many reporters present, it didn't take long for the misunderstanding to be completely cleared up. The next morning, the famous Yuan directly tied Xiao Haiqing to the hot search list. Ling Lin was also a smart manager. She took the opportunity to bribe a few media outlets and released some scenes of Xiao Haiqing's previous acting. In addition, there were many comments from the cast and crew. Although Xiao Haiqing's previous roles didn't have many scenes, her image was very positive and she was dressed very beautifully. Because she was very recognizable and looked exactly like whatever role she played, coupled with her good character, she attracted a large number of fans. Chapter 901. Jing Yunzhao's fan club account also received a lot of attention, but the outside world didn't know her identity. In order to keep track of Xiao Haiqing's movements, Jing Yunzhao's account had more and more fans, and it was growing crazily almost every day. Although it couldn't be compared to A-list and B-list stars like Yi Wan and Mu Ru, it was still a road to fame. Jing Yunzhao was really happy for Xiao Haiqing. Director Wang had a good impression of her. It seemed that she wouldn't have to worry about her next film. It would be difficult for her to not become popular in the future. However, at this time, the school was surrounded by another matter. The news that Zhou Meijun had died spread. Those who knew her before felt a little sorry. Although Zhou Meijun didn't get along with Jing Yunzhao, she was still good to other people who weren't competitive with her. She even tried her best to please them. Therefore, she was very popular in her class. Now that the sudden news of her murder came, many people were shocked. Fortunately, this matter didn't have anything to do with Jing Yunzhao. Otherwise, it would inevitably cause some trouble. It was just that she avoided it, but Tao Gu couldn't. After being locked up in the police station for 2 days, Tao Gu was released. However, to the students in the class, her release didn't mean that she wasn't guilty. It was just that no evidence was found. A student who might have killed someone was like a demon. No one would help her or have a good impression of her. They even felt that she was like a plague. They were afraid that she would suddenly explode and harm the people around her. Tao Jiyi's parents also came to the capital at this time. They even specially came to the school to explain to the dean. Jing Yunzhao also glanced at them from afar. He could only say that they were a hard-working couple. Full of tears, heavy as a mountain. What a pity. After this incident, Tao Jiyi's whole person changed a lot. She became silent and gloomy. After all, she was a girl, but she was interrogated in various ways in the police station. The shadow in her heart couldn't be dissipated in an instant. Moreover, when she recalled the scene of Zhou Meijun lying in a pool of blood that day, she had nightmares. For the first time, he felt regret. If she hadn't pretended to be Jing Yunzhao back then, she wouldn't have gone against her. If she hadn't made things difficult for her, she wouldn't have become more and more stubborn. If she had given up her dissatisfaction and resentment towards Jing Yunzhao, she wouldn't have been given a demerit. Similarly, she wouldn't have gone out with Zhou Meijun for that 100,000 yuan. She wouldn't have become a suspect. She used to be a good student, or else she wouldn't have been able to get into a university. But now, even though she was in a university, it was no different from a prison. Especially when he saw the disappointment and worry on his parents' faces, he felt as if he had fallen into a pitch-black abyss, unable to step out. At this time, Tao Gu was extremely pitiful, but Jing Yunzhao only looked at her indifferently every time he saw her. There were thousands of choices in this world. She had missed more than one step. It wasn't as if she hadn't given her a chance. But now that she had suffered a great loss, she was finally willing to admit her mistakes. But even if she did admit her mistakes, she should pay the price for what she had done. And compared to Zhou Meijun, Tao Gu was still lucky. At least she was still alive and had a chance to work hard. She was still in a university, and her future was still in her hands. If she couldn't even bear such a small punishment, how could she be worthy of admitting her mistakes? One had to know that if she had been a little stupid and allowed Zhou Meijun to torture her, plus Tao Ji's lie, she wouldn't be here now. But she wouldn't let the man who had killed her go. She had already ordered her subordinates to follow him. At this moment, Jing Yunzhao thought of the murder knife and evidence in the space. His eyes narrowed. After class, he took out the pen from the space and walked over to Han Nan. Chapter 902. When Jing Yunzhao walked over to Han Nan, there weren't many people in the class. His attitude was polite as he placed the pen on the table. When Han Nan saw Jing Yunzhao walk over, he couldn't help but feel excited. But when he saw the pen, he froze. What's the meaning of this? I'm sorry. I was going to return the pen to you when it was in the box, but I didn't know why I left it behind. I just found out about it, so... Jing Yunzhao said apologetically. Leaving the pen for so long was bound to cause a misunderstanding, right? You wanted to return it to me. Han Nan didn't believe it. The box was empty at the time. Jing Yunzhao clearly accepted his gift. I'm sorry, but I didn't use the pen. If you can't return it because of my mistake, I can still give you the money. Jing Yunzhao continued. Han Nan was a little flustered, I thought. Jing Yunzhao, can you accept the gift? If there's anything I've done wrong, I can change it. He originally thought that the reason she kept the pen and gave the box to him was because it was a token of love. Now that he had carefully put the box away, he was very happy when he thought that the pen in the box was in her hands. I'm returning it to you. But class rep, I hope you won't give me a gift next time. I don't like to take other people's things. Jing Yunzhao frowned and said coldly. After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked away. Han Nan panicked and immediately tried to grab Jing Yunzhao's arm. Feeling someone touch him, Jing Yunzhao almost immediately pulled his hand away. You. Jing Yunzhao, I like you. Please be my girlfriend. Han Nan suddenly opened his mouth. His voice was very loud. Even though there weren't many people in the class, everyone heard him clearly. After a few seconds of silence, everyone began to cheer. In their eyes, Jing Yunzhao and Han Nan were a good match. The former was the top student in class and the school beauty. Although Han Nan wasn't as good, he was at least the class rep. Rather than let someone else pluck Jing Yunzhao's flower, they'd rather see her and the class rep become a couple. A perfect match. Jing Yunzhao, just say yes. Our class leader is so nice, she must be super warm to you. Class rep, you're not being a good friend, you have to give her flowers when you're confessing, together. Together. Everyone in the class was talking at once, causing a headache. Jing Yunzhao coldly glanced at Han Nan. Sorry, I have a boyfriend. After Jing Yunzhao finished speaking, the class suddenly fell silent. Han Nan's face paled. Who? Han Nan asked. He's not from this school, and I don't think I need to introduce him to you. Class monitor, thank you for your kindness, but it's impossible between us. After saying that, Jing Yunzhao went back to her seat. Before she sat down, she said to the others, I hope you don't make fun of me and others. My boyfriend is very jealous. He won't be happy if he finds out. Chapter 903. Due to the ruckus, the class was incomparably quiet. However, Jing Yunzhao's temper wasn't to be trifled with, so no one would purposely bring up this matter to provoke her. Even though no one said anything on the surface, the fact that Han Nan had feelings for her was still known by the whole class. Jing Yunzhao continued to do things her own way. Apart from classes, she was rarely seen. She was almost the most mysterious person in the school. However, the more mysterious she was, the more curious others became. Every time Jing Yunzhao appeared, more and more male students would cast eager looks at her. As for Jing Yunzhao, other than going to Celestial Crane Hall once more, she and Qin Shui were busy with the medical company's matters. The old guys from Crane Hall had been waiting for her for a long time. Unfortunately, she didn't like being controlled by others. Even when she showed up, it didn't satisfy their curiosity. Instead, it made them even more anxious. A few of them even wanted to ask her for advice in private. However, they were just itching to do it. They weren't mentally prepared. She wasn't petty. She was just arrogant. If these old doctors thought she was too young and wanted to know her skills, she wouldn't be so stupid as to teach them one by one. However, if they were willing to ask for advice and were polite, it wouldn't be a big deal. After all, they were medical practitioners. As long as it wasn't a secret technique unique to their ancestors, it would be a good thing for them to spread her knowledge. Therefore, she was waiting. She was waiting for those old guys to be humble enough to learn from each other. As for the pharmaceutical company, it was going strong. It was different with the military backing. It was much smoother than the rise of Yuling wine. When it first appeared, many in the same industry had already made way for it. As soon as Yunling painkiller was released, it became famous. Many hospitals came to place orders for it. As a result, the other common medicines sold very well. However, since it was just the beginning, the investment wasn't small. It would take a while for the profits to come in. Moreover, the factory had just started operation. Even if the scale wasn't small, they couldn't eat too much in one go. The large batch of painkillers on the military side was enough to keep them busy. There was definitely a limit to the amount of painkillers they could provide to the hospitals. Almost all the major hospitals in Jindo City had been contacted, including the hospital run by the Leaf family that Professor Mo had mentioned. He felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. After all, whether it was Professor Mo, Elder Su, or Granny Yufu of the Immortal Crane Hall, they all disliked the Leaf family's hospital very much. With this layer of relationship, Jing Yunzhao naturally would not let the Leaf family's Mingyi hospital get too many painkillers. Chapter 904. At night, Jing Yunzhao changed her clothes at Elder Su's place. Qin Shui personally drove over to pick her up. This set of clothes leaned towards the Chinese style. When Jing Yunzhao wore it, it gave off a classical charm, yet it also carried a bit of beauty and fashion. The embroidered ink flowers on the top of the clothes were especially beautiful, complementing her entire person to be even more beautiful and otherworldly. She was as beautiful as Celadon, exuding a delicate charm. Elder Su looked at Jing Yunzhao's outfit and had a look of praise on his face. When he thought about how she was going to meet his eldest son, he felt even more complicated. "Chief Jing, please." Qin Shui's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise, but he was still polite and respectful. Jing Yunzhao was very noble. Her whole body exuded a kind of domineering aura that made people unable to look at her directly. It was very convincing. Jing Yunzhao got into the car. When she thought of Shen Shi, her eyes turned cold. Qin Shui, who was sitting next to her, inexplicably shivered and his whole body trembled. He felt that Chief Jing was not going to attend the charity banquet. It was more like she was going to cause trouble. But how was that possible? Chief Jing was such an obedient little girl. How could she be so scary? It must be her temperament that made him feel wrongly. Not long after, Jing Yunzhao arrived at the venue. There were also reporters at the entrance of the hotel, but they were all well-behaved. They looked completely different from the aggressive reporters she saw in the past. Even if they were reporters, there were many types. Qin Shui took out the invitation and walked in with Jing Yunzhao. Now, more than 90% of Yunling Medicine's shares were in Jing Yunzhao's hands. The remaining 5% was in the hands of the military. In addition, Qin Shui was given 1%. It didn't seem like much, but Yunling Medicine had great potential in the future. Qin Shui was only in charge of the business and didn't have any other investments. This amount was considered money given by Jing Yunzhao in addition to her salary. Inside the hotel, it was a dazzling sight. People walked in along the red carpet. Qin Shui wasn't a newcomer. He had appeared in such occasions many times before, so he was very familiar with them. Soon, he got along well with the people. Although Jing Yunzhao came in with him, he had no intention of accompanying him to exchange greetings with others. He found a place to sit down and quietly waited for Su Yuantek to appear. There was a big screen above, playing some engineering plans. When the party officially began, someone would explain it, and then it would be time for the businessmen below to prepare to spend money. However, this kind of formal occasion was not a place for children to play house. There were almost no people of her age. These businessmen either brought their secretaries or wives. Jing Yunzhao was a little eye-catching. Mayor Su is here. Not long after, Jing Yunzhao heard someone say. Jing Yunzhao immediately turned to look at him. His gaze deepened. As expected, Shen Shi was here. Su Yuantek was said to be 47 or 48 years old this year, but he looked very charming. His nose was high, and there were not many wrinkles on his face. His eye sockets were deep, and his eyebrows were sharp. His facial features were very regular. He looked like he could even act in a movie. From his appearance, one could see some of Su Lao's shadow. Beside him was the noblewoman Shen Shi. She was wearing a slightly conservative dress and a pair of jade bracelets. Her long hair was tied up, and she had a kind face. She smiled without showing her teeth. Holding Su Yuantek's arm, she walked leisurely, full of the style of a big family. Jing Yunzhao watched quietly. She accompanied Su Yuantek to exchange greetings with others. She held a glass of champagne in her hand. She raised it gently and smiled slightly. Many people nodded and bowed to her. As the mayor, he had to take care of everything. There was still a long time before the party. Jing Yunzhao was not in a hurry. He waited leisurely. Chapter 905. Judging from her appearance, Shen Shi was a woman worthy of Su Yuantek. She was beautiful and somewhat similar to Shen Tong. Her gestures were very polite. Although she didn't come from a high family, she had a strong aura. She had been a rich lady for many years, so she naturally exuded an aura that made people admire her. "You're Chairman Qin. Nice to meet you." Su Yuantek met Qin Shui. He took the other party's business card and took the initiative to greet him. The rise of Yunling Medicine was very sudden. He had sent people to investigate, but they only found the general manager of Yunling Medicine, Qin Shui. As for the real person in charge, he was listed as a protected target by the military. Before the medical company was completed, he didn't have the authority to look at it. This kind of situation was rare, so he was a little surprised. But after all, it was a newly established medical company, so he didn't focus all of his attention on it. "Mayor Su, Madam, I'd like to propose a toast to you. I hope you can take care of me in the future." Qin Shui didn't hold back. He was neither servile nor overbearing when dealing with people and matters. You're too polite, Chairman Qin. Your Yunling medicine is quite mysterious. I've always wanted to meet the person in charge, but the military advised me not to interfere for the time being. This made me curious. Su Yuantek laughed dryly. His eyes flashed, and it was difficult to tell whether he was happy or angry. Didn't you see her now? Our chairman specially asked for leave to come here today. She heard that her idol is you, so she specially came to see you. Qin Shui smiled. He knew Jing Yunzhao's purpose. Oh. Your chairman is also here. Su Yuantek was indeed surprised. He thought that this mysterious chairman wasn't going to show up at all. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked the military to keep it a secret. But, what did he mean by asking for leave? Could it be that this person was still working somewhere else? Qin Shui smiled, but his expression looked a little strange. He raised his hand and pointed in Jing Yunzhao's direction. Su Yuantek looked over and saw a particularly beautiful back. It's a woman. Su Yuantek was surprised for a moment, but a very strange feeling suddenly emerged in his heart. He felt that this moment was very important. Shenxi, you can walk around by yourself first. Su Yuantek said and walked over. Shenxi glanced at her and didn't care. After all, although the other party was a woman, Su Yuantek wasn't a lecherous person. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been alone for so many years. She immediately smiled at Qin Shui and said a few words. Shenxi then walked in the direction of her acquaintances. At this time, the closer Su Yuantek got, the more nervous he felt. This had never happened in all these years. Feeling someone approaching from behind, Jing Yunzhao put down his wine glass and turned around. Suddenly, Su Yuantek stopped in his tracks and froze on the spot. In the next second, he took a step forward and immediately stood in front of Jing Yunzhao. He grabbed her arm with both hands and said, Xianlan. Mayor Su, hello. My name is Jing Yunzhao. Su Yuantek's eyes went from joy to coldness. He instantly calmed down and extended his hand. Who are you? Mayor Su. I've already told you. Jing Yunzhao smiled. Su Yuantek's eyes darkened. This girl wasn't his sister, but she looked very much like her. But why would someone who looked so similar suddenly appear in front of him? It seemed to be intentional. Could it be that this was arranged by his opponent? But, as she was the person in charge of Yunling Pharmaceuticals and was protected by the military, she should have nothing to do with his opponent. Chairman Jing, nice to meet you. His voice was almost squeezed out from his throat. Jing Yunzhao smiled and shook the hand he extended to her. Chapter 906. Jing Yunzhao's hand was so cold that it chilled people's hearts. Su Yuantek looked at the face that resembled his sister's and felt an inexplicable heartache. His sister, Su Xianlan, was the most important woman in the world to him. He had seen many people who resembled his sister, but none of them were as similar as the one in front of him. In terms of appearance, they were 60 to 70% similar. The only difference was their temperament. Xianlan, like her name, was like a secluded orchid with an amiable temperament. The girl in front of him was very cold. Even though she was smiling gently, he could still feel the coldness in her bottomless eyes. It was an innate coldness. He had always been very good at judging people. He was almost certain at first glance that although this girl looked young, she was definitely not a simple person. Mayor Su, you seem to be very excited just now. I look like your sister, right? Jing Yunzhao said. This Su Yuantek seemed to be somewhat amiable. He probably had a lot of suspicions about her purpose in his heart, but in front of this face, he lost his sense of propriety. Sure enough, as Su Xingyuan and Li Xiaoyun said, he loved his sister as much as his life. Su Xianlong was really a happy woman. How do you know? It seems that Chairman Jing knows me very well. Su Yuantek secretly clenched his hands. Of course, Uncle Xing Yuan and I often talk about you. Jing Yunzhao didn't hide it at this time. Hearing this, Su Yuantek tensed up. He looked at her in surprise. You. Who are you? Mayor Su, you seem to be a bit too nervous. I'm not a bad person who has ulterior motives towards you. I'm just curious about the Su family. Let's put it this way. I'm from Huaning County. I've known Uncle Xing Yuan for 3 years. Jing Yunzhao said. Then you also know Su Jingji? Su Yuantek directly asked again. That's right. Elder Su can be considered as half of my pharmacist mentor, Jing Yunzhao answered obediently. This time, Su Yuantek was even more surprised. He knew his father's temper very well. Back then, because he had secretly helped Xianlong leave the capital and caused Xianlong's accident, the old man had hated him and his second brother for many years. For many years, he had ignored them and not only targeted him, but also the old man's own grandson. Their father loved Xianlong the most. The 3 of them had all learned how to make medicine at first, but in the end, the one who really inherited the Su family's ability to make medicine was the younger sisters. However, after her accident, their father had said that even if the Su family's ability to make medicine was completely gone, he would never pass it on to them. He thought that in the end, Su Xingyuan would be the successor of the Su family, but he didn't expect that a girl who looked so much like Xianlong would come. But at this moment, he did heave a sigh of relief. Is this your relationship with the old master? You were born in Huaning County. Miss Jing, I don't know if I can ask one more question. Who are your parents? Jing Yunzhao secretly raised his eyebrows. Sure enough, Su Yuantek still wanted to ask. My parents are unknown. After Jing Yunzhao said this, he immediately said, but Mayor Su, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Elder Su also asked this question, but the answer he got was no. Uncle Xing Yuan also said that the man with your younger sister never admitted that he had a daughter, so, is that so? Su Yuantek just said this sentence softly. There was a saying called self-deception. Maybe the old man was just numbing himself. After all, since this girl said that her parents were unknown, it meant that she didn't live with her mother. Then, the possibility of Xianlong's death was even higher. Of course, his father was unwilling to admit it. Chapter 907. Su Yuantek's gaze softened as he looked at Jing Yunzhao. He couldn't help but feel a little emotional. Regarding this matter, he was more realistic than the old man. It was true that he doted on his younger sister, but with the Su family's current capabilities, if they couldn't find a person after spending so many years, there was an 80% to 90% chance that the person was no longer in this world. Because of Li Tianyi, he had never considered that his younger sister would have such a big daughter, but if Jing Yunzhao was really his niece, he would still feel more at ease. At least his younger sister would no longer be without a successor. Miss Jing, would you be willing to cooperate with us for a test? Su Yuantek asked politely. After all, he still couldn't confirm the identity of the girl in front of him. Even though he felt a sense of familiarity from her, he couldn't be too anxious. Jing Yunzhao had already expected this, so she didn't refuse and nodded. Mayor Su, I hope you won't be too disappointed when the time comes, Jing Yunzhao said. That won't happen. Su Yuantek smiled and took a sip to calm himself down. He then asked, Miss Jing is young and promising. You founded Yunling Medicine at such a young age. That's really impressive, especially with the support of the military. It's really rare. However, the Su family only cares about making medicine. They don't develop any medical prescriptions. Where did your company's medicine come from? Mayor Su, don't worry. There won't be any problems with those medicines. Other than knowing how to make medicine, I also know some medical skills. The prescriptions were all taught to me by my master. Master? Su Yuantek was surprised. It seemed that this girl was quite lucky. His father was already an outstanding pharmacist. He was very picky when it came to accepting disciples. He would never teach someone who wasn't talented. Moreover, he always required those who learned how to make medicine to be focused. For example, when he wanted to enter the political world, his grandfather never taught him any pharmaceutical theories. Jing Yunzhao actually learned medicine from someone else while he was learning medicine from the old man. It was really strange. Not only that, he was now the owner of Yunling Medicine. Your medical company has a bright future. If you have any problems in the future, you can contact me. Oh right, my father shouldn't be in Huaning County now, right? Su Yuantek asked again. This was also what he had just guessed. Jing Yunzhao knew the old man, so there was no way she wouldn't come to this business dinner without informing him. Recently, the old man's situation had been a bit strange, especially when he was on the phone with Su Xingyuan. He always felt that something was wrong. Now that he saw Jing Yunzhao, he understood what was going on. That's right, Jing Yunzhao said honestly. As expected. Su Yuantek laughed dryly. You're studying at a university. You're the student who had a relationship with Professor Mo, right? Yes. Jing Yunzhao nodded again. Su Yuantek sighed. He knew it would be like this. Su Xingyuan's bad temper wasn't very good. He only listened to the old man and never cared about outsiders. However, he called Su Yu for no reason and reprimanded him. He even said that Su Yu had offended Professor Mo and the old man weren't friends at all, so it was impossible for him to stand up for him. Now that he thought about it, the most important reason should be Professor Mo's student, Jing Yunzhao. However, thinking of this, Su Yuantek's mood improved a lot. The old man had been too stubborn these years. Other than Su Xingyuan, there was no one else around him. Now that a little girl like Jing Yunzhao had appeared, it was a good thing. Especially since this girl looked like Xianlan, and she might be the descendant of the Su family. Chapter 908. After Su Yuantek suppressed the excitement in his heart, he took a deep look at Jing Yunzhao and then turned to other places. There were many people here, so he couldn't just focus on chatting with Jing Yunzhao. Jing Yunzhao's purpose of coming here was only half achieved. After Su Yuantek left, he walked towards Shenxi. Mrs. Su, your skin is so well maintained. The Su family has a 1,000-year-old tradition of making medicine. Is there any secret formula? Look, you're obviously the same age, but you look like a little girl in her 20s. I'm embarrassed to stand next to you. Several women stood together, and their laughter suddenly came. Shenxi was surrounded in the middle of the crowd. The other women looked at her enviously, and words of praise were incessant. No, I am already so old. How can I compare with a little girl? Shenxi took a sip of red wine and smiled slightly. With this smile, the women's eyes were filled with amazement. Time was like a curse to women like them. Their husbands were not ordinary people. As long as they called out to them, countless wild bees and butterflies would pounce on them, squeezing them to the point that they had no status to speak of. This was especially true for women of the same age as Shenxi. Most of their husbands had other partners, and even their husbands would not speak sweet words or be gentle with them anymore. However, Shenxi seemed to have been forgotten by time. She was elegant and generous. Su Yuantek was not only rich and powerful, but also very self-disciplined. He was famous for being a good man. Shin-shi's good life was envied by most people. Mrs. Su, you and Mayor Su are a model couple. Your son is also a student of a famous university. Speaking of which, Shintong, who was popular in half of the world, is your sister. She is not as lucky as you. By the way, I have a cousin who is a loyal fan of Shintong. Why don't you introduce them to each other someday? Maybe they can make a good marriage happen. However, these words made Shin-shi's face stiffen, but it disappeared in a flash. Really? That's such a coincidence. Let's do it another day then. But my sister is arrogant. She may not be able to put down her pride. Hey, I'll try my best to persuade her, okay? Shin-shi said with a smile. As soon as he said that, the other party felt a little uncomfortable. Back then, Shintong was highly praised by everyone, but in the end, didn't she run abroad to avoid the limelight? She was just an actress. Did she have the right to be arrogant? If Shintong was half as considerate and polite as Shin-shi, she wouldn't have run her own beauty salon in public, right? Mrs. Su, it doesn't seem right to speak ill of others behind their backs, does it? At this moment, a cold voice suddenly came from behind. Everyone was stunned. They turned around and saw a young girl with a faint smile on her face. She was staring at Shin-shi. Her eyes were unfathomable and sent chills down everyone's spine. When Shin-shi saw this, her hand trembled and the red wine spilled out. She hurriedly wiped it. You are? He asked through gritted teeth. What was Jing Yunzhao doing here? Mrs. Su, don't you know me? I'm Jing Yunzhao. Didn't you ask Shintong to send a bottle of wine for me to taste? Jing Yunzhao said matter-of-factly. After that, he glanced at the red wine spilled by Shin-shi and chuckled. Mrs. Su, are you so surprised to see me? So it's Miss Jing. I'm not surprised, I just didn't expect. Shin-shi stood up and spoke in a friendly manner like an elder. I heard from Shintong that you are a student of a university. How come you have time to come here today? But if I had known that you were interested in this business party, I would have asked someone to send you an invitation. Then you wouldn't have had to trouble others. Chapter 909. Shin-shi's tone was normal, as if she really cared about Jing Yunzhao. The eyes of the people next to her lit up. Mrs. Su, this is, she. I don't know how to introduce her. You know, my father-in-law has been recuperating in the countryside. Thanks to this child's care. Shin-shi smiled and said, Miss Jing, since you're here, just walk around. But the banquet will end later. When you go back, the school will be under curfew, right? How about this, I'll get you a room later. By the way, take this card and go shopping tomorrow. A little girl like you will definitely like the things on this street. At this moment, she only hoped that Jing Yunzhao would be thin-skinned and leave immediately after hearing this. If her husband saw her, there would definitely be a big problem. But after Shin-shi said this, the people next to her turned from joy to disappointment. This little girl who suddenly appeared was extremely beautiful and wore expensive clothes. They thought that she was a relative of the Su family. They didn't expect that she was just a little girl from the countryside. Looking at her appearance, she just appeared to ask Shin-shi for money. Hey! I feel that this Miss Jing looks familiar. At this time, someone said suspiciously. She looks a bit like my sister-in-law, so my father-in-law takes care of her. Shin-shi quickly explained. After saying this, Shin-shi took out the bank card from her handbag and stuffed it in Jing Yunzhao's hand. You child, why are you being so polite with me? Take it, Jing Yunzhao snorted and smiled contemptuously. Mrs. Su, are you trying to drive me away? Jing Yunzhao sneered. What do you mean? I don't understand. Shen Shi's smile stiffened. As everyone knows, Mayor Su loves his sister. I look so much like her, so I should meet Mayor Su to relieve his yearning for his sister, right? Jing Yunzhao said again. Shen Shi's face began to turn ugly. Miss Jing, our Su family didn't do anything wrong to you. Everyone knows that Xianlan is my husband's Achilles heel. After so many years, he finally got over the past. I hope you won't appear in front of him and make him sad. Take it as I, Shen Shi, beg you. Shen Shi said righteously. When the people around them heard this, they couldn't help but think of some family matters related to the Su family. The two sons of the Su family had a smooth career, but the daughter was very pitiful. She went missing early, and outsiders said that she had died. Even her body was not found. This matter was taboo in the Su family. Miss Jing, Mayor Su is a busy man. Why do you insist on seeing him? Mrs. Su is polite to you, but don't push your luck just because she has a good temper. Someone immediately began to help. Don't say that, everyone. This is just a small matter. Shen Shi immediately said. This matter came so suddenly that she was a little unprepared. However, no matter what, she couldn't make a big deal out of it. Chapter 9-10. The woman was shocked and quickly stepped back. She shouted, but her reaction was too slow. Her clothes were already stained with red marks, and she was furious. But just as she was about to get angry, Shen Shi suddenly grabbed the woman and said, Mrs. Wang, I'll take you to the bathroom to wash up. You can calm down, Mrs. Su. The woman couldn't believe it. She was a famous person, but she was bullied by a girl. Shen Shi actually asked her to endure it. Why? Mrs. Su has a lot of dogs around her. If you want to be favored, you can't bark. You can't even see through your master's thoughts, and you still want to stand up for her. Jing Yunzhao said coldly. Her words immediately infuriated the women around her. What Jing Yunzhao wanted was for them to get angry. The angrier they were, the more nervous Shen Shi was. Before, Jing Yunzhao didn't understand why Shen Shi was so anxious to target her, but this long time was enough for her to think about it. Shen Shi didn't want her to be too close to the Su family. Maybe it was because her face made her think that she was Su Yuantek's daughter, so she didn't want her to meet Su Yuantek. Just like now, the angrier these women were, the worse her face looked. Everyone, she is still a child, Mrs. Su. This is not a place for children to play house. Her words are so unpleasant. Anyway, I can't stand it. I want to know who brought her here. Mrs. Wang said angrily. Her clothes were expensive, and now they were stained with red wine. Even if the wine stains were washed away, she wouldn't have the face to wear them in the future. Shen Shi was very angry at this time. She had attacked Jing Yunzhao several times, but she didn't know why she was so lucky. She had arranged for someone to arrange for her to be charged with murder. But who knew that so many policemen couldn't find her, and she even lost the murder weapon. In the past month she had thought of a way, but the people she sent to follow her had all lost her. She was usually in school, so it was hard to find her. Now, she had not expected her to find her here. Her attitude was even stranger. Could it be that she knew everything she had done in secret? But, that's impossible. She didn't leave any evidence behind. Mrs. Wang, let me apologize to you on her behalf. No need. The moment Shen Shi opened her mouth, Jing Yunzhao cut her off and casually said, Mrs. Su, you don't have to pretend to be a good person in vain. When I came over just now, I personally heard you say that my Auntie Tong is arrogant and arrogant. I can't accept someone like you who is two-faced and two-faced apologizing for me. You. Shen Shi gritted her teeth, her face tense. If it weren't for the fact that she was used to it after so many years, she really wanted to strangle her to death. Jing Yunzhao couldn't help but gasp in surprise. This Shinchi's ability to endure was indeed top-notch. Even after her continuous provocations, she still didn't reveal a single bit of her true colors. This woman's ability to conceal herself was truly unfathomable. However, since she was here, she didn't intend to let her go in the future. No matter how deep she hid, she would dig out her nature little by little. You really have no manners. A girl from a small place doesn't know any manners at all. You're even a student of a university. It's ridiculous that you can't study properly and come to a place where you don't belong to make a fool of yourself. At such a young age, you know how to use your face to find men. What will happen in the future? Do you think that just because you look a little like Su Xianlan, you can make Mayor Su look at you? Dream on. Do you think Mrs. Su is invisible? Mrs. Su, you have to be careful. You should be careful of this little vixen. Ask the security to drive her out immediately. Chapter 9-11. Mrs. Wang was so angry that her chest heaved up and down. She pointed at Jing Yunzhao and scolded her incessantly. Even the other women were the same. They hated Jing Yunzhao to the extreme. Shenxi had accumulated a lot of popularity among these rich ladies over the years. Almost everyone thought that she was an elegant and magnanimous woman. Even if they didn't give her face, they had to consider her identity as the mayor's wife. Mrs. Wang's voice was not soft, and the words, "little vixen," touched the women's most sensitive spot. Immediately, the atmosphere became lively. There was a security guard in a black suit waiting at the scene. When he heard the commotion, he immediately walked over. Qin Shui had been watching Jing Yunzhao's situation. When she saw the security guard go over, she immediately followed. Jing Yunzhao pursed her lips and smiled. It made people's hearts tighten. She didn't need to explain. If Shinchi cared about Su Yuantek, she wouldn't let Mrs. Wang call her a vixen. After all, now that they had quarreled like this, Su Yuantek would definitely notice. The only thing Shinchi could do now was to show her politeness and respect. Mrs. Wang. Be careful with your words. Miss Jing is our Su family's VIP. Shinchi gritted her teeth and said. She had been schemed against by a little girl. She had left a good impression on people over the years. However, this time, she had offended Mrs. Wang because of Jing Yunzhao. Other than Mrs. Wang, other people would also be disappointed in her. Mrs. Wang was stunned. She had known Shinchi for many years. It seemed that this was the first time she had seen her so angry. However, she was clearly venting for her. What did Shinchi mean by this? Madams, what happened? The security guard hurried over and asked. Mrs. Wang was still angry. Who brought this girl here? Throw her out. This. The security guard hesitated. He remembered that he had seen this little girl chatting with Mayor Su. They seemed to be talking happily. I brought her. Qin Shui came over with a sullen face. Who are you? Mrs. Wang frowned. She didn't recognize this person. It doesn't matter who I am. I just don't know what our director Jing has done to make you chase her out. Qin Shui continued with a cold expression. This banquet invitation was personally selected by Mayor Su. As a VIP, Director Jing originally wanted to contribute to this project, but what do you mean by this? Before he came, Jing Yunzhao had told him that Yunling was in the pharmaceutical business after all, and it was important to have a charitable reputation. Therefore, he was not going to be stingy with his funding this time. Although he thought that it would be beneficial to the company had just started, and he was afraid that the company would not have enough funds. However, who knew that Jing Yunzhao did not care about money at all? He had transferred a huge sum of money from somewhere. Not to mention donating a part of the project, it would not be a problem for him to take over the entire project. At this moment, Qin Shui's words caused the women to be stunned. Chairman Jing. What do you mean? Are you kidding me? Mrs. Wang's face stiffened as she snorted. How old was this child? How dare he call her Director Jing? Who was he kidding? Although our Yunling medicine has just been established, we are not as easy to knead as dough. Director Jing, since everyone doesn't welcome us, then forget it. Qin Shui then looked at the security guard beside him and said, please go and tell Mayor Su and the others that our Yunling medicine is not qualified to attend such an event. We will leave first. With that, Qin Shui pretended to leave with Jing Yunzhao. Jing Yunzhao was clear about this, so he was happy to cooperate. He slowly put down his wine glass and glanced at Shen Shi. 80 million yuan was wasted just because you called her a vixen. Really, every word is worth 1,000 gold. Chapter 9-12. Most of the people who came to the banquet this time were prepared to spend a lot of money. However, even if they were rich businessmen, money didn't come from nowhere. If it was an investment that could make more money, of course they wouldn't be stingy. But now, what they were doing was just to give Su Yuantek some face. 10 or 20 million was enough. No one would squander too much. However, there were many people present. Sand would make a tower. They definitely wouldn't lack the last 1 billion. The moment Jing Yunzhao opened her mouth, she asked for 80 million. It was indeed shocking. She said this deliberately. At this time, a person in charge of the banquet passed by. When he heard this, he immediately stopped her. Even if the person in charge didn't know Jing Yunzhao, he would know Qin Shui. President Qin, this young lady, did we not take good care of her? As he spoke, he glanced at the security guard. The security guard looked very innocent. I wouldn't dare. Jing Yunzhao said softly. Then, she said, Mrs. Su and the other ladies are very arrogant. They think that 80 million is just a small amount, so they are prepared to pay for me. They don't want me to be an eyesore here. Some of the women here were quite innocent. However, if they didn't receive a strong dose of medicine, how could they see clearly what kind of person Shen Shi was? The person in charge was stunned for a moment. After glancing at the women suspiciously, he asked, Miss, this is the chairman of Yunling Medicine. Qin Shui looked proud. Yunling Medicine. The person in charge was shocked. He was in charge of the banquet. How could he not know what kind of company Yunling Medicine was? When the invitations were being sent out, Mayor Su had specifically instructed them to inform this company. Furthermore, he had also asked around and found out that although this Yunling Medicine was a new company, it had pushed many established pharmaceutical companies down in one fell swoop. This was a company that the military had a stake in. One of the pharmaceutical factories even provided medicine for the military. The construction of this company's factory was done by the military. They had been riding on the military's coattails all the way and hadn't encountered any trouble at all. When he first heard about it, he thought that it was the military in disguise. He thought that the mysterious chairman must be someone from the military, but it turned out to be a little girl. Chairman Jing, there must be some misunderstanding. I'll get someone to invite Mayor Su over. After saying that, he immediately arranged for the service staff to walk over to Su Yuantek. Shen Shi panicked when she saw this. She couldn't let her husband see Jing Yunzhao. But, what should he do? Ouch! I'm so dizzy. Miss Jing, can you accompany me upstairs to rest? By the way, I have something to tell you. Shen Shi quickly said. Mrs. Su, you seem to have frequent headaches. The last time you saw me and Grandpa Su at the mall, did you have headaches like this too? It just so happens that I know some medical skills. When Mayor Su comes over, I'll treat you in front of him. Jing Yunzhao's smile was bright and beautiful, but it sent chills down one's spine. Shenqi's face turned pale, and the muscles on her chin trembled. Yes, it's time to meet. Miss Jing, my husband will be very happy to see you later, Shenqi said again. Since she couldn't hide, she could only accept her fate. Fortunately, she didn't do anything on the surface. Even if Jing Yunzhao and Su Xianlan looked alike, she had a reason not to introduce her to her husband. Her husband should understand. We met just now. Mayor Su is indeed very happy. I feel like old friends with Mayor Su at first sight, and I was thinking of visiting the Su family more in the future. However, I just heard someone call me a little vixen. I don't know if Mayor Su will still be too close to me if he knows. Jing Yunzhao chuckled with a mocking look in her eyes. Shenqi's forced smile froze when she heard this. She met. Then what was she doing for so long just now? Did Jing Yunzhao do it on purpose? Did she deliberately make her nervous? But, how did she know so much about her? Chapter 9:13. Looking at Shenqi's shocked face, Jing Yunzhao suddenly felt much better. She looked at Shenqi with a sly and cold smile. At this time, when the people around them heard her words, they were puzzled and felt guilty. Mrs. Wang, in particular, was even more confused. Today seemed to be too strange for her. She spoke up for Mrs. Su, but was inexplicably splashed with red wine. Obviously, she was wronged, but Mrs. Su was on the side of the little girl who hit her. Now, this little girl had become Director Jing in the blink of an eye, and was even familiar with Mayor Su. Mrs. Su, you clearly said that she was. From the countryside, Mrs. Wang felt aggrieved. When did Shenqi do things like this? Could it be that he wanted to harm her on purpose? When Shenqi saw Mrs. Wang's slightly angry attitude, she was so angry that she wanted to grind her teeth to dust. Previously, she thought that Jing Yunzhao was just a simple little girl, but now it seemed that it wasn't the case. From the time she appeared until now, she seemed to be causing trouble, but in the end, she made her suffer unspeakably. Her appearance here probably wasn't a coincidence, it might even have been arranged. Perhaps the old man had acquiesced to it. Shenqi felt uncomfortable, but at this time, she could not explain to Mrs. Wang. She even had to say that Mrs. Wang was wrong. And this Mrs. Wang. Although she was just the wife of a businessman, she was also well known in the upper class and had good relations with people. If she offended her, she was afraid that she would not be able to attend many dinners in the future. Although she was the mayor's wife and did not need to care about these people's opinions, her reputation was built up over the years. It was hard not to be angry when it was lost. After a while, Su Yuantek came as expected. His eyes did not fall on others, but were directly attracted by Jing Yunzhao. He frowned and looked particularly serious. What's the matter? Su Yuantek asked. I'm a guest invited by Mayor Su, am I right? Jing Yunzhao raised his eyebrows, full of vigor. At first glance, outsiders would feel that Jing Yunzhao and this Su Yuantek had some similarities. Even their temperaments were the same. It was a little scary. Su Yuantek looked at the face and nodded. But just now, Mrs. Su said that I was a little girl from the countryside and insisted on giving me money as if I was a beggar. Is this the upbringing of a noble family? By the way, Mrs. Su also called me a little vixen. Mayor Su, I have been living with the old man for 3 years. Our relationship is like that of a grandfather and a grandson. The old man has never insulted me. Why is she pointing at my nose and despising me on this occasion? Jing Yunzhao was determined to pour dirty water on Shenxi. Judging from Shenxi's reaction just now, this woman must be very afraid of Su Yuantek. In this case, all the more she could not let go of this opportunity. New hatred and old hatred had accumulated for so long. Today, she had only paid back a little bit of interest. Jing Yunzhao's expression was cold and full of provocation. His eyes were gloomy, which made Shenxi tremble with anger. But she couldn't explode. Especially in front of Su Yuantek. After Jing Yunzhao finished speaking, Su Yuantek raised his eyebrows and glanced at Shenxi. Explain. He and Shenxi had been married for more than 20 years. Naturally, he could not sentence her to death because of Jing Yunzhao's words. But as Jing Yunzhao said, she had been living with the old man for 3 years. Her character must have been confirmed by the old man. Even if what she said was a little exaggerated, there must be some truth in it. Chapter 9:14. If he had to choose between the two of them, Su Yuantek would definitely lean towards Jing Yunzhao, even if it was only the first time they had met. As for Shenxi, he had never truly understood this woman in the past 20 years. He didn't understand what she wanted, or rather, he didn't want to understand. Back then, their marriage had been like a deal. He had given her a choice, and she had chosen without hesitation. At that moment, he had felt that Shenxi had an incomparable yearning and obsession for the life of a wealthy family. It made him feel that her infatuation and devotion were all an act. At the beginning of their marriage, for the sake of the young Su Yu, he had considered whether he should try to become a real husband and wife with Shenxi. But it was just a fleeting thought, because he couldn't help but resist her. She was sensible, elegant, and gentle. She used almost all her strength to get close to this circle. When she was unhappy, she was gentle and magnanimous. When faced with ridicule from others, she was gentle and magnanimous, just like how she treated him. To put it bluntly, all her reactions were not like that of a normal person. They were more like preset characters. She tried her best to blend into that character, regardless of the cost, and treated everyone equally, which made him feel that this woman would never be able to move his heart. And Jing Yunzhao might have Su Xianlan's blood running through his veins, as well as the teachings of his grandfather. These factors were more reliable than his own investigation. At this moment, Su Yuantek's seemingly cold words made Shenxi feel like she was in an ice cellar. Her face trembled a few times before she adjusted herself. A gentle and aggrieved smile appeared on her face, and she said, "Hubby, Miss Jing misunderstood. There's something I haven't told you. I knew that Miss Jing and her father-in-law had come to the capital long ago, but her father-in-law didn't want to see us, so he told me not to tell anyone. This was something that Miss Jing personally told my sister, so I thought that Miss Jing was just an ordinary girl from Huaning County. I wanted her to have fun, and I was afraid that she didn't have enough money, so I was too nosy. I didn't expect Miss Jing to be so capable that she even started a company about the vixen just now." Shenxi glanced at the nervous Mrs. Wang and said with a smile. Mrs. Wang said it out of concern. She saw that Miss Jing looked like Xianlan, so she was afraid that she was a bad person. "Miss Jing, I apologize." At the side, Mrs. Wang was so angry that she was dumbfounded. Jing Yunzhao didn't even expose her, but Shenxi actually. "Mrs. Wang, I don't know what evidence you have to say that this child is a vixen." Su Yuantek's expression was particularly ugly. Even though the DNA test hadn't been done yet, in his heart, he already regarded Jing Yunzhao as his niece. Saying that his niece seduced him. Where did the courage come from? Mayor Su. Mrs. Wang was just about to speak when Jing Yunzhao called out first, and then said, "Speaking of which, I have to apologize to Mrs. Wang. I just splashed red wine on you. I'm very sorry. Mrs. Wang was already confused. What the hell was Jing Yunzhao doing now? The red face became white face, and the white face became red face. Mrs. Wang is a straightforward and righteous person. She couldn't stand Mrs. Su's attitude when she gave me money, but I didn't respond, so she was a little unhappy and said a few words. I'm young and impatient, so I made a move. So, speaking of this matter, it has nothing to do with her. Jing Yunzhao opened her mouth to clarify for her. She was a person who was dragged in for no reason. Chapter 9:15. Shen Shi clenched her fists. This Jing Yunzhao was too scheming. This Mrs. Wang was in cahoots with her, but she had picked the glass room for no reason. That was one thing, but now, she was actually trying to be a good person. Su Yuantek was not a fool. At this time, he could clearly feel Jing Yunzhao's hostility towards Shen Shi. Since this matter has nothing to do with outsiders, let's talk about it when we get home. Su Yuantek looked deeply at Shen Shi and frowned. If Jing Yunzhao was his niece, there would definitely be a time when they would be living under the same roof. At that time, he hoped that Shen Shi would grow some brains, lest she couldn't even figure out the thoughts of the younger generation. But just like when he was not married, when he found his niece, he would definitely be more affectionate. Since Su Yuantek had spoken, Shen Shi could only nod obediently. She felt extremely nauseous in her heart. She knew that her husband was unhappy, but he couldn't vent his anger in front of outsiders, so he left her some face. At this time, the real goal of the banquet began. The people on the stage introduced the charity project this time. The projects were divided into several categories. The main ones were medical treatment and poverty alleviation. The funds raised would be announced. For these companies, it was a glorious and beautiful thing. Therefore, compared to the previous charity fundraising, the scale of this project was obviously larger, and the money raised was more than 10 times more than before. Of course, in addition to the money from these rich businessmen, the government would also contribute. Therefore, after the banquet, it would definitely attract a lot of attention. After the incident just now, Mrs. Wang and the others accompanied their men and became very quiet. However, they looked at Shen Shi with disappointment and indifference. In addition, they were also curious about whether Jing Yunzhao's exposed identity was true or not, and whether the so-called 80 million was a bluff. When the project introduction ended, the people below the stage began to raise their placards. The amount of money they would spend must be estimated first and made public. First, it would save their face. Second, there would be proof of receipt in the future. Baikan Project donated 8 million, Dejin Industries has donated 11 million, Radiophonic Media 20 million, Hui's Jewelry 25 million, Cloud Spirit Medicine donate $80 million. Amidst the usual 10 to 20 million voices, there was a sudden addition of a very sudden number. Everyone immediately turned their heads to look at the waiter holding the sign in the crowd. They couldn't help but feel suspicious in their hearts. Was there a mistake? 80 million wasn't a sky-high price for a company that had made billions or even tens of billions over the years. However, it wasn't a small sum of money that could be thrown away at will. This amount of money was enough to buy a company. Although the reputation of charity was important, it was inconceivable to donate so much for this. Moreover, this Yunling Medicine seemed to be a newly established company. When a new company was operating, it would require a lot of money. However, after looking over, everyone felt that it was a little strange. Chairman Qin of Yunling Medicine looked a little strange. He let a girl stand in front of him, and he himself looked like a subordinate. Just now, someone seemed to have said that the person in charge of Yunling Medicine was a little girl. Could it be true? Jing Yunzhao didn't avoid the gazes that were directed at her. She also didn't explain much. She wasn't very passionate about money. In fact, when she started a medical company, she had the idea of doing good deeds. This 80 million wouldn't affect the operation of the company at all. Since she was going to donate it anyway, she might as well take the lead and attract attention. She could also make a name for herself and live up to her conscience. Chapter 9:16. Even Su Yuantek was a little shocked by the 80 million. He looked at her with a complicated gaze. If Jing Yunzhao was really his niece, then he wouldn't feel too good about it. This child was 18 years old this year, but her thoughts were too heavy and her work was too steady. To be able to achieve her current achievements at such a young age, she must have suffered a lot in the past. He believed that the company did not have the old man's help because the old man was not that kind of person at all. Even his own children were left to their own devices. He would never feed the cooked food into the children's mouths. In fact, he despised those idiots who only knew how to rely on others. However, the more she was like this, the more she seemed like someone with the blood of the Su family. Compared to that useless son of his, she was many times better. The charity banquet ended amidst the sighs of the crowd. Yunling medicine attracted a lot of attention. That night, there were many people who investigated Yunling medicine. Almost everyone wanted to know if the company's CEO was this extremely beautiful little girl. Unfortunately, the results were the same. Qin Shui was only a CEO, but they could not find out who his boss was. After leaving the banquet, Jing Yunzhao did not return to school. Instead, she sat in Su Yuantek's car. The two of them went straight to the paternity testing center that night. Su Yuantek came personally because he had pulled some strings. Su Yuantek's gaze was serious. Jing Yunzhao was a little embarrassed. The old man had told her that once she appeared, Su Yuantek would definitely have some expectations. This man was polite to her and was not bad. However, this time, he would definitely be disappointed. Jing Yunzhao was a little absent-minded when she came to this place. She had never been very enthusiastic about finding her parents. Was it a little wrong? However, she had encountered too many things over the years. The parent-child relationship that she had never interacted with made her feel pressured. It was the only thing she did not want to face. She could control her emotions and knew how to deal with people who were not related to her. However, if it was her own family, she did not know how to deal with them. Jing Yunzhao smiled bitterly. Really, he was affected by Mayor Su's emotions. That was why he suddenly felt so emotional. Su Yuantek had left traces of Su Xianlan many years ago. There was hair and blood. Originally, Jing Yunzhao only needed to pull out a strand of hair. However, Su Yuantek was extremely suspicious and cautious. In the end, he decided to take the hair and blood for a test as well. With his identity, the waiting time would definitely not be as long as a few days or even weeks like those hospitals. However, even so, he would still have to wait until dawn at the earliest. After providing her hair and blood, Su Yuantek obviously didn't let her leave. There's a lounge in the appraisal center. You can rest there first, Su Yuantek said. Mayor Su. What about you? How many hours do we have to wait here? Jing Yunzhao was a little surprised. Yes. Su Yuantek breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the time on his watch. Fortunately, I asked someone to send the documents over. I'll take care of it while I'm at it. I'll just kill some time. God knew how he had lived for so many years. Every time he closed his eyes, he could remember Su Xianlan grabbing his arm and begging him to let her be. She said that although Li Tianyi was a member of the Li family, he was different. Instead of staying in the capital and facing the wrath of the two families, it was better to leave and live a peaceful life elsewhere. She also said that if she could not be with Li Tianyi, the two of them would suffer for the rest of their lives, just like Jing Wenyue and Mo Jingyan did decades ago. Chapter 9:17. Thinking of the past, Su Yuantek's eyes flashed with regret. That was his younger sister. Although she was only 6 or 7 years older than him, he had raised her single-handedly. If he had known that he would never see her again after that farewell, he would rather imprison her in the Su family for the rest of her life. It was better than not seeing her alive or dead. Li Tianyi was a good man, but his father was not. Because his surname was Li, he was destined to have a bad ending. He should have thought of this. Jing Yunzhao thought for a while and sat down next to Su Yuantek. I heard a lot about Su Xianlan from Uncle Xing Yuan. After a long time, I'm really curious, Jing Yunzhao leaned back and murmured. Not only was he curious, but he was also a little envious. She was actually a very happy woman. Her parents loved her, her elder brother spoiled her, and her younger brother respected and missed her. She had a very good reputation. People who knew her couldn't help but sigh when they talked about her. There was no slander, only exaggeration and praise. Even though this person had disappeared for 18 years, he was still remembered and missed by the people around him. Xianlan was good in all aspects, but she had a fatal weakness. She could risk her life for love. Su Yuantek looked into the distance and said, Li Tianyi's mother died early, and his stepmother married him. Although he was the eldest son, he was controlled everywhere. However, he was very smart. He had a photographic memory and was familiar with all kinds of medical books. Unfortunately, he was not valued by the family and no one taught him carefully. That was until he met Xianlan. Xianlan was born in a family of pharmacists, but she also knew medicine. Every time she found something Li Tianyi didn't know, she would ask my father in a roundabout way. The Su family and the Li family had some relationship. My father pretended not to know, but he didn't forget to teach him. It could be said that the old man was Li Tianyi's teacher. Later, he really became a talent. He had excellent medical skills at a young age. He was elegant and treated people kindly. He also gained a lot of reputation for treating and saving people. It's a pity that he's too open-minded and doesn't fight for anything in the Li family. Old Master Li doesn't like him, and the same goes for the old man in the Li family. He will never allow the Su family's daughter to marry into the family. Su Yuantek slowly said a few words. There were some things that I couldn't ask you before, but I really don't understand why the Su family and the Li family don't get along. Jing Yunzhao thought for a while and asked the question that had been bothering him for a long time. The Su family is a pharmaceutical family with a 1,000-year-old heritage. You should know that, right? Su Yuantek asked. Jing Yunzhao nodded. Like the Su family, there's also the Jing family, which specializes in medicine. The Su and Jing families have been very close since ancient times, and each of them has their own duties. In the past, the old man and Jing Wenyue's generation were very close. They were even like siblings. Unfortunately, the Jing family's medical skills were too good, and they attracted attention during the war back then. As a result, they didn't have many children, and Jing Wenyue was the only one left to inherit the family. According to the ancestral teachings, only men can marry into the family, but not outside the family. Jing Yunzhao continued nodding. She had heard all this before. Jing Wenyue liked Mo Jingyan, but Professor Mo was proud and arrogant. In the end, Jing Wenyue married Li Wenbo, who had been helping the Jing family for many years, in order to inherit the family's legacy. The Li family was considered the Jing family's old shopkeeper a long time ago. A few decades ago, they were in charge of some of the Jing family's affairs. The marriage between the two families was considered a good thing. Moreover, the Li family and the Jing family had been close for many years, so they were considered reliable. However, they became the source of the disaster. Hearing this, Jing Yunzhao's heart trembled. She felt that some of the things that she had been confused about before were starting to unravel. She originally thought that the Jing and Li families were two different families. Chapter 9:18. When Jing Wenyue got married, my father personally attended as her elder brother. Both families were very lively. Since Li Wenbo married into the family, their children should naturally follow the Jing family surname. Thus, not long after Jing Wenyue got pregnant, the Jing family and the Su family were extremely happy. After all, regardless of whether the child was a boy or a girl, they would have a successor. But no matter how much they thought about it, they never expected Jing Wenyue to die in childbirth. The Jing family is a medical family. They saved so many people, but in the end, they couldn't save themselves. It was simply lamentable. After Jing Wenyue's death, Li Wenbo took over the family assets. The Li family had been entangled with the Jing family for many years, so it was only natural for him to take over the family assets. No one objected at all. Li Wenbo used to be extremely fond of Jing Wenyue, so the old man who was obsessed with making medicine didn't think too much about it. However, when Li Tianyi turned 1, Li Wenbo officially announced that his son's surname was Li, not Jing. At that time, it was already too late. Everything in the Jing family was secretly controlled by Li Wenbo and completely changed into the Li family's assets. Don't underestimate this surname. There was no one else in the Jing family. Even if the blood of the Jing family flowed in Li Tianyi's body, it was useless. After all, he had Li Wenbo by his side. It was also because of this reason that the Su and Li families fell out, and the Jing family ceased to exist. Su Yuantek's explanation was very clear. Jing Yunzhao now understood even more. No wonder everyone said that the Jing family's bloodline was broken. This didn't mean that Jing Wenyue's son had died, but that the Jing family had no successor and no one to pass on their medical skills. However, when he thought about the medical skills in the surname Jing, Jing Yunzhao felt that something was wrong. It couldn't be that coincidental, right? The ancestor in her space was called Jing He. Could he have some connection with the Su and Jing families? With this thought, Jing Yunzhao couldn't sit still. Looking at the tightly shut door, he felt an indescribable sense of worry. Miss Jing, actually, I already know the result. Su Yuantek looked at her and suddenly said. Jing Yunzhao was stunned. It seems that you don't know old Master Su very well. He is a person who is very clear about who is close to him. If you were not related to the Su family, he would guide you, but he would not give you everything wholeheartedly, because the Su family also has its own rules. The ability to make medicine can be passed on to outsiders, but there are also some restrictions. But I can tell from your reaction when you mentioned old Master Su that he will give you everything he wants. Su Yuantek smiled. The reason why he still called her Miss Jing was because he could tell that this girl had no such thoughts at all. Are you not interested in who your parents are at all? Su Yuantek asked again. Jing Yunzhao was so shocked by his first sentence that she didn't know how to react. After a few seconds, she shook her head. I was interested in it before. I even looked forward to meeting my own parents. In her previous life, when she found out that she wasn't Yi Qin's biological daughter, she had fantasized in her heart that it would be great if her parents suddenly found her one day. Even if they weren't rich, even if they didn't have much affection for her, as long as she knew that she wasn't a bastard child, it would be great. But the reality was that it was just a fantasy. After it was shattered, she was only clear-headed and even began to resist. Su Yuantek immediately understood. Sure enough, she had suffered a lot. The two of them were silent for a while. They waited quietly. Time seemed to have frozen, and it passed very slowly. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that every second felt like a year. When the appraiser came out, Su Yuantek's body stiffened, and Jing Yunzhao's heart suddenly began to beat faster. The results are out. The blood test and hair test results are the same. They are related. The appraiser saw Su Yuantek's nervousness and directly said, "You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."